have your attention, please? We'll be starting up shortly. Good evening, and welcome to the Lowell Planning Board for Thursday, September 19th, 2024. The first matter on the agenda is the approval of the September 5th, 2024 minutes. I know we had some corrections made by Mr. Bichette and Caleb as well. Any further comments in regards to the minutes? If not, I'll make a motion to approve.
I second the motion.
Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. So before we get started tonight, unfortunately, we only have 3 board members. One board, we're short a member as it is to begin with. We have 1 member sick and 1 who is away on business. So therefore, the applicant before us tonight would need the votes of all 3 board members. So at this point in time, if they'd like to proceed before the meeting tonight, they may, or if they want to request a continuance, do we have a full board? It is up to the request of the applicant.
So, good evening, Mr. Chairman. William Martin, offices at 491 Dutton Street. I'm the attorney for the applicant. We think, given that there's interest in this project, there's a lot of neighborhood people here. We'd just as soon proceed and go forward.
Okay. So even if we get it started tonight and it gets continued, you may be still stuck with 3 board members. Because if any other board member wants to participate at a future meeting and they were not present, then what they have to do is update themselves and sign an affidavit. Usually to their effect is what they do is go on LTC and watch the meeting. If they don't do that, then when we proceed in the future, you're still stuck with 3 members.
So,
And that's totally up to the other board members, and I can't speak for them.
I understand that that's the procedure, and we're actually hopeful we get approval tonight, but if not, hopeful that the other board members might step forward and want to participate. This has been before the board a number of times, as everybody knows, so hopefully there's some familiarity.
Yeah, and we have a couple of new board members who've never seen it. Okay, so we'll be going forward. Okay, so we have 2 Prince Ave, 1 Markley Way, site plan review. Markley Group LLC has applied to the Lowell Planning Board to make multiple changes to their industrial site. The applicant is proposing to install an additional 9 chillers and 4 generators. The applicant is also proposing to construct a new water treatment building and make various utility and infrastructure improvements. The property is in the light industrial zoning district and requires site plan review approval by section 11.4.2. May we hear from the applicant, please?
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. So you correctly articulate the request for relief that we're here for. We think it's a fairly straightforward request. We're looking to add infrastructure to that which has been approved in the past, most recently in December of 2023. Similar type proposal was before the board. It was approved. That work has just recently begun. A lot of what was approved in the December hearing is not complete yet, is just getting underway, and we do have some detailed drawings that will show what has been completed already, what has been approved but not completed, and then what relief we're seeking for additional work tonight. So I do have a number of people here, both for the applicant Markley, people that are in-house at Markley, and also engineers and expertise from various disciplines, because we know there's some potential questions. There have been flyers circulating in the neighborhood, and we think we're prepared to answer questions that board members or members of the public might have. But before we get into the detail, I would just like to take a look at the big picture here. Markley came to Lowell in 2015. They've made tremendous improvements to the property, which you will see in the slides that we've going to present tonight. It's a little hard to notice that because the security profile of the company is shielded from public view. A lot of the aspects of the site are not available for public view, but nevertheless, we think there is a good story to tell here. We think we've been a good citizen in the neighborhood and in Lowell. And we think this is something that's an exciting project for Lowell, and that the city should be proud to have as part of Lowell. When you look at the history of Lowell, you know, we were founded in the 1820s. Lowell was a center of innovation then. And innovation in the 1820s, you know, was 5 miles of canals and mills that were powered by water power on the canals. In 1980, innovation may have looked like the Wang Towers. But in 2024, 200 years after Lowell's founding, this is what innovation looks like. The work that Markley is doing is the infrastructure for much of the progress that's going to fuel the growth in the economy. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, all those things depend on servers like what Markley has put into this, what was a very underutilized and kind of rundown facility. Our clients are governments, state and local governments, research universities, internet companies, all sorts of things that are going to drive the future of the economy here in Massachusetts and the economy in Lowell. So we think this is, we're very proud of the work that's been done at the site. We think we have a lot of to offer here in the city. We hope that the board will embrace this proposal. And I'd like to recognize Tony Mora from Stantec, who the project engineers, and he can get into specifics about what is existing, what's proposed, and then we'll have others talk. And I would come back and like to address at some point the items raised in the staff memo.
Thank you, Council.
Peter, were you able to get that PowerPoint pulled up? I'll wait for it to get on the screen. There we go. So as was mentioned, this project's been before the board several times.
Just have your name and address, please,
I'm
sir?
sorry, Tony Mora from Stantec. I'm a civil engineer with Stantec. Here to present the site plan for the proposed application this evening. As was mentioned, this project's been before the board several times since dating back to 2015. Peter, if you can go to the next slide, I can kind of show you an overview of the site plan. I'll recap kind of where we left off last fall when we were last before this board. You know, this project's been under construction for quite some time, since 2015, under various phases of improvement. The most recent approval involved the redesign of the parking lot that you see on the screen there. We were here before this board last fall to propose a reconfigured design that was approved last fall at Planning Board. It shows additional landscaping, and additionally, as part of that project, we were proposing a retaining wall within the 100-foot buffer of the brook just north of the property. That retaining wall was at the time proposed because, as we mentioned last fall, it was to create a generator yard for infrastructure that was necessary to support the data center facility. The retaining wall levels off the grade adjacent to the brook, and a pad will be installed that will be a place to house these generators that will support this critical infrastructure at the Markley facility. This project was approved last December, and construction is ongoing. An update on construction so far: the parking lot is largely complete. All the utilities are largely installed. Binder pavement was laid down a few weeks ago. Much of the landscaping has been installed. Much of the site has been graded. The stormwater detention facility that we show on the plan has been installed and is largely complete. The remaining work really centers around the retaining wall and that leveling pad that we discussed for the generators. That work is still ongoing. Retaining wall construction is about to commence and will last sometime through the end of the year, and is expected to be completed either by the end of the year or early next year. Once that is complete, that area will be ready to receive these generators, and that's what we're here to present to you tonight. Peter, if you can click the next slide. So this is the proposed site plan. As you see, it looks substantially similar to what was approved last December. The only change is the additional generators that have been determined to be needed to support the project, and the additional modular chiller plants, which are essentially cooling towers that provide cooling needed for these data center server rooms that get quite hot, and so they need a substantial amount of cooling to support those critical infrastructure pieces. In order to make way for those modular chiller plants, the existing road that you see on the screen needs to get shifted about 16 feet further eastward, and all the utilities that are in the road, not all, but some of the utilities that are in the way of those modular chiller plants will need to be relocated to support that, the placement of those modular chiller plants. Peter, if you click on the next slide. So this slide is essentially the same as the last slide. It just sort of shows what critical infrastructure has already been approved and installed to date, and what we're requesting approval for tonight. So the various colors refer to whether or not the critical infrastructure is currently installed, approved, or proposed. The salmon color represents infrastructure that has already been installed on site. We have 7 existing generators already installed on site, 1 water treatment enclosure, 1 water tower that supports the facility, 2 modular chiller plants have already been installed on the site, and that's it. As far as what's previously approved by this board but yet to be constructed, those are shaded in blue. So you'll see the additional 5 modular chiller plants just north of the 2 that are already installed. And a second water tower will be constructed. Much of the critical infrastructure for the water tower has already been installed as part of the previous approval. Foundations are in, all the critical piping and infrastructure and valving is in. It's just a matter of putting the water tower on the foundation. And the remaining blue generators to the north of the site, there's sort of 2 yards, a north yard and a south yard with a driveway in between. All the blue generators have been previously approved by this board. Tonight we are requesting approval for 4 additional generators. Those are the purple ones that you see on the screen. And we're requesting approval for an additional 9 modular chiller plants. Those are the purple modular chiller plants you see just east of the building. The other critical piece that's required to support the modular chiller plants and this infrastructure is an additional water treatment building to the north. It's that small purple building right up there. There you go. Thank you. That building supports essentially half of the chillers. The existing water treatment building supports the other half. That's our proposal. As part of this project, we're going to be relocating the site's existing sanitary sewer pump station, which is located somewhere in that blue box where the chillers are currently. We need to move that in order to create room to install these chillers. So we'll be installing a new sanitary sewer pump station, which was needed to be repaired anyway, so it was an opportunity to upgrade that critical infrastructure anyway. We'll be installing storm drainage along that ring road that is being moved, and we're installing several retaining walls on site to allow for the move of the road and to serve as, just sound attenuation for the generators themselves. We have been before the Conservation Commission. We received approval last week for the work within the buffer zone. We addressed all of their comments, and they agreed that our stormwater system complies with the Massachusetts stormwater regulations, and that overall our work in the buffer zone complies with the Wetlands Protection Act. That's the site plan. At this point, I'd like to hand things off to the Markley Group. I believe it would be Jeff speaking. If you can click the next slide. Jeff will give you sort of a more detailed explanation of what actually happens here at the data center. Thank you.
Good evening. Jeff Flanagan, Executive Vice President with Markley Group. And before I get into the slides, I'd just like to take a moment to address a concern that I know has come up in the past about the number of times Markley has been before this board. And just to offer the explanation that, you know, our business grows as we obtain clients, given the cost of this infrastructure. You know, the project we're looking at currently is about $225 million. Thank you. The project that we're currently looking at is approximately $225 million. So that's the reason we can't go in and just build out everything all at once. I just wanted to make that point because I know that was a concern about how many times we've been in front of the board. But in terms of, you know, as was said earlier, we purchased this property in 2015. We're committed to investing over $350 million. You know, and in that time frame, we've never had a hazardous waste event in the history of the company. That's over 30 years. In addition, we've never had any outages for any of our clients. Could we have the next slide, please? Markley has been a strong supporter of Lowell and Lowell organizations. We are a board member of the Lowell Plan, and we support over 25 different local charities in Lowell, and you know, are a proud member of the community. We can go to the next slide, please. As part of our involvement, you know, we are very involved with the Lowell Police Department. We have assisted them in apprehending criminals in the process of criminal acts, and we work closely with them and feel that our presence has created a safer environment in the neighborhood. Now, for the benefit of board members who may not have been here in the beginning, these are a few slides of what we started with. You know, this building was very underutilized. It was a recycling plant for electronics, and you know, we did a great deal of cleanup when we bought the property. This is just an example of some of the conditions when we purchased it. We have the next slide, please. Again, this is 2015. That's the brook, which, you know, was collapsed, and Markley rebuilt the walls to the brook. Markley actually polices the brook twice a year with the Conservation Commission's approval, and we've pulled everything out of there, from motorcycles to mattresses to televisions, continuously. This is right here, it depicts telephone poles which were removed from the property, which were actually not in use any longer. In addition, we removed railroad tracks as well as all the debris that you see. We've planted over 2,000 trees and shrubs. We've, obviously, are you familiar with the fencing that we've installed? We've removed graffiti, painted the buildings, tore down dilapidated structures, and disposed of all that waste properly that you saw in the previous pictures. And I mentioned the brook. Go to the next slide, please. Okay, some of the proactive measures that we've taken to accommodate concerns of the neighbors concerning, you know, running our equipment is actually, we've reduced, you know, the burn-in time required when we install new equipment from 4 hours to 2 hours. We've reduced our weekly testing time from 10 minutes to 5 minutes. We've tried to combine events to avoid multiple, you know, use of the equipment. And we've actually reduced our annual load test from 4 hours to 1 hour. So we've really made efforts to accommodate concerns that we've heard from the neighborhood. In terms of the south side generators, which have been a concern of the neighbors as well, we've taken a number of steps to try and satisfy those concerns, including extending the stacks on those 3 times making them narrower to present a better vertical exhaust. We've took the flappers off, again, to improve the dispersion of that exhaust. So we've been very proactive in trying to address concerns brought to us. Okay, Tony, are these? Yes. I'm going to ask Vin from BHB to introduce himself and walk through the following slides.
Hi, my name is Vince Tino, Senior Air Quality Scientist from VHB in Watertown. As Jeff said, air quality is a major concern with engines around here. So one of the first things that Markley did was reduce their testing procedures, their testing times, to be able to minimize air quality impacts on the community. In addition, these new north side generators that are being permitted now through DEP will have diesel particulate filters to control PM emissions. These DPFs made by a company in Franklin called Ripos reduce diesel particulate emissions by 85%. The California Air Resources Board standard. We've assumed 85% in our calculations. I believe Ripos guarantees a higher number than that. That reduction is better than Mass DEP's best available control technology for emergency engines. Right now, the best available control technology per DEP is a Tier 2 uncontrolled engine for engines these size. Markley is going above and beyond by putting diesel particulate filters on these engines. In our air permit application to DEP, our studies show there's no air quality violations when running these engines. DEP is under the review of the permits under DEP right now. We're addressing their comments, their questions, but that's who has purview over the air permit. These diesel particulate filters run a cost of $330,000 each, not including installation. So for 10 engines, that's $3.5 to $4 million in control technology. And as I said, all the air pollution sources on the facility will require an air permit from DEP. Next slide, please. So for noise is also a big issue. On the south side of the property, the southern generators, Markley's installed a sound wall at the top of the berm. They've created such a berm and landscaping in between the generators and the properties on the south side. And as a result of comments from a few of the last load testings, Markley's agreed to move the load banks from the southern road to the northern western side of the parking lot to minimize noise from these load banks. It's my understanding that the load banks cannot be moved significantly far away because of the dangers of voltage lines running across parking lots and things like that. Next slide, please. So in the northern side, where the new generators are going, Markley's committed to purchasing 33 decibel reduction enclosures rather than the standard decibel reduction enclosures of 25 decibels. These enclosures run an additional $30,000 each. They've agreed to install critical grade silencers, critical grade mufflers, to reduce noise from exhaust. These mufflers run anywhere between $17,000 and $30,000 each. They've also agreed to increase noise walls in the northern side, increase heights of noise attenuation, noise fencing. That'll reduce noise from these generators. The estimated cost for those, it's still under design, is over $2 million. So the approximate total amount spent on noise control is somewhere between $2.5 and $3 million. So you add that to the $3+ million done for air quality control in the northern generators, you're looking at about $7 million in control costs for air quality and noise. And as the earlier slide said, these generators are for emergency use only. They're limited by permit to 100 hours per year for non-emergency use. So on average, when they're tested weekly and with the one test per year, they run roughly 13 hours a year. So essentially, is Markley spending $7+ million for generators that run 13 hours a year. Next slide, please. So this cooling tower is going to be put on the eastern side of the property. Markley's looking at acoustical silencers to reduce noise from the fan discharges. They're also looking at panels to be installed to reduce noise from the air intakes to the cooling towers. And additionally, they'll be looking at installing an improved sound wall on the property line on the eastern side to reduce noise from the cooling towers. Can you go back one slide, please? So you can see the cost of each mitigation measure for each modular cooling tower. So we think Markley's spending a great deal of money to control air quality and noise for generators that run such a short amount of time in general, on average. Next slide. Good. Thank you.
Jeff Flanagan with Markley again. And we just wanted to illustrate some of the before and after conditions because we're very proud of what we've done at this site. And, you know, anyone who has had the opportunity to tour it, you know, it says it is very impressive. So if you could just go to the next slide, please. We're just going to go through a few before and afters. And, you know, currently we've spent, I believe the number is $137 million on the project. Our TIF required us to spend $100 million by 2026. We've also created, as of the 2023 filing, 47 permanent jobs, where the TIF required us to hit 50 jobs by the end of 2026. So we feel we're right on target with the TIF and well ahead of it in terms of investment.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I may, these mitigation measures that the engineers have discussed, I would just point out, as far as the noise mitigation, as designed, the project complies with the City of Lowell standards for noise. So this extra work is in further reduction of a project that would otherwise already meet the required standard. Similarly with the other mitigation, we meet existing DEP standards and have committed to go above and beyond what is required per statute and regulations. If I could just address briefly some items raised in the staff memo. Mr. Flanagan just talked about the TIF. There was some question in the staff memo about economic development comments. 100 jobs is actually a requirement by the year 2035. So we're at 50 now, which meets the commitment. And with this approval, we anticipate adding 20 to 30 more, which would, I think, keep us right on target to meet the job requirement commitments. And similarly, the investment is well ahead of schedule, and with this project would be vastly in excess of the amount of money that Markley committed to invest in this site. The other thing that talked about in the staff memo are conditions from approvals, prior approvals that were issued by the board. We did provide a table showing that 19 conditions were previously issued. 16 have been fully complied with. 3 are ongoing, and I would just like to address briefly those 3. In 2018, there was a landscaping plan submitted, and the landscaping that has been able to be completed per that plan has been complete. We didn't mark it as complete because the 23 modification changed some of that. So what was existing and could be done in 2018 was in fact done. What is not done is because the plan was modified in 2023. So at the conclusion of this part of the project, that landscaping would be completed. Another condition still underway is the condition issued in 2020 regarding the second water tower. So prior to the erection of a second water tower, which has not yet occurred, DPD is supposed to approve a landscaping plan. So we have not yet completed that plan, and we have not yet completed approval of the landscaping for it. But because the tower's not complete, the landscape plan's not required to be complete. We are in discussions with one of the neighbors who directly abuts that is here tonight, may have something to say about that. We did leave the existing fence line, which actually is closer into the Markley property than is required. We didn't want to disrupt what was an existing fence line, but as a result of that, it sort of limits our ability to plant on our side of the fence. We're between a fence and a retaining wall, and we're skeptical that things can grow there. So we're in discussions with the neighbor, perhaps putting plantings on the neighbor's side of the fence. But again, that's a condition that we would be required to meet before we began construction of the second water tower. That's an existing requirement. DEP has to approve that plan before we would be able to proceed with that water tower. And the third item is the fence on Andrew Street, right? There was, for a long time, a chain link fence on Andrew Street. That's reported as a work in progress. The actual Andrew Street fence has now been complete since we made the initial submission. There is still a chain link gate on that fence, and the reason for the gate is that the roadway is not complete. As part of these improvements, there's going to be roadway improvements, and when the roadway improvements are complete, then I guess a more site-appropriate design on a gate would be installed at that point. So those are our report about existing conditions. We think, 16 of those things we did exactly as the board required, and the other 3 we've gone as far as we can. There was a comment in 2023 that we finished the Andrew Street fence as part of this phase of the work. And in our view, we are in this phase of the work. This phase of the work is still ongoing. We're here to just seek some expansion of this phase of the work due to customer orders and customer requirements. But we think we have in good faith complied with all the prior conditions imposed by the board, and would look forward to answering any questions you have about that or other items.
Thank you. Before I turn it over to the public, we did receive some communications, actually 2 letters that I'll get to in a minute, but we did receive an update from our building inspector, so I'll read that into the record. This is from Dave Fuller, Lowell Building Commissioner. In anticipation of the meeting, the Markley Group before the board seeking the site plan modifications, I offer the following observations and comment. This is dated Wednesday, as of yesterday. The north side of the campus has continued installations of the RAM piles. This is a very loud and noisy process that impacts the quality of life to all abutters. The use of RAM piles afford the installation of 15 piles per day. This method will be terminated Friday, September 20th, per Lee Cleveland, Site Project Manager. All remaining piles will be installed via RAP piers, estimated to be 65 plus or minus. This method is far less invasive than the RAM piles. The process will limit the installation to approximately 3 per day, adding hundreds of thousands of dollars to the project. Cost aside, this is the right approach, sparing the surrounding area. These piles are being installed to accommodate future equipment, generators and chillers, as the operation work to full capacity. As it has been explained to me by Markley, the presence of all these equipment does not translate into its use all at one time. Given the nature of data storage, there is no room for error if they experience power failure from a running piece of equipment. Systems detect potential failure and power sources are transferred to other equipment in seconds to avoid disruption, fractional seconds to avoid disruption. Given the double-digit quantity of generators and chillers to come online, it is reasonable to assume additional noise from the operation of the additional equipment. Markley does operate to minimize its presence and has taken sound reduction measures previously. However, the board responds to the site plan modification request. I feel that one of the decisions should include a decibel audit as new equipment comes online. This audit should include notification from Markley and permission before doing so. The combination of decibel reports should include a schedule to be established by Markley and the City of Lowell to ensure that the increased volume of machinery is not detriment to the abutters. Having been assigned the authority of noise complaints, the building commissioner would investigate the complaints. Respectfully submitted, David Fuller, Lowell Building Commissioner. As indicated by comments from staff, unfortunately, usually when we have a project, especially of this size, we do get a lot of other comments from other city departments. However, we did receive from the building commissioner. Unfortunately, we did not receive anything from the transportation engineer, the superintendent of parks, the environmental planner comments. We did not hear from the Lowell Police Department. We did not hear from the Lowell Fire Department. We did not hear from the Lowell Regional Wastewater Utility. We did not hear from the Water Department, the Historic Board, and we did not receive any staff department from the Public Works Department. Unfortunately, usually we have majority of those before us before any public meeting. So at this point in time, I'll open the matter up to the public, and I will start with anybody who's in favor, saying that. We did receive 2 letters in favor, so I'll start by reading those. This is from Celine Corkland, 102 Bourne Street, to whom it may concern. I'm writing this letter expressing my support for Markley Group. They have done a lot for our neighborhood, including cleaning up the area and making it safer for all of us. Don Eason has been amazing. He has answered all my questions pertaining to our health concerns, noise control, building plans, etc. If he doesn't have an answer, he would find out and get back to me in a timely manner. Mr. Eason has assumed me the generators, cooling tanks pose no health risk or fumes that will affect our health. He also stated they will be performing monthly maintenance to ensure there are no health risks, which I'm sure there are regulations that need to be followed. Any concerns I've raised have always been responded to quickly. They made corrections to a fence that was put alongside my property, probably 3 feet away from my house. It was a solid 10-foot or bigger fence that was solid black. I felt like I was in a box with no sunlight or view. They came right out to discuss the options with me and corrected this by taking out the slats so it would let light shine through and I could see the beautiful sunset we get here. This was very much appreciated. We are all neighbors, and we need to support one another as Mockley Group is here to stay, brightening up our neighborhood. We need to remember that the property looked like before it was purchased by them. I know there will be things we all don't always agree on, but we live in a city with neighbors close by, so we need to get along and work together. In closing, one suggestion I would have is that all neighbors have someone to contact if they have a question or concern before they feel no one is listening or they have no way to voice their concerns. If not, our neighbors get together and voice their concerns with each other, getting them nowhere but frustrated. Maybe a website or neighborhood advocate would help. This information would need to be easily accessible, as not everyone knows how to get in touch with someone who can assist with their concerns. I hope this helps and finds everybody in good health. Sincerely, Celine Cortland. And we did receive a late letter this afternoon, which I didn't have a chance to print out. So excuse me while I try to read it off my phone. Let's see here. Oh, you got it this afternoon? You printed it again? Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, so we got another notice. Okay, so this is from the desk of Joe Ballas, President, R Squared Office, Panels, and Furniture. Me, Mockley, Lowell site. I am the owner of the property located at 56 Newhall Street, Lowell, Mass, directly to the north of the Mockley site. My property has the largest section of shared property line with the Mockley site out of all the abutting properties. I'm writing this letter in support of the work that Mockley has done on the site and for the neighborhood, and for the work they have proposed to the planning board. Prior to Mockley's purchase of the property at 2 Princeton Ave, it was an eyesore, being used in part as a recycling location for electronics and objectionable materials. The property was kept in very poor condition with heavy overgrown vegetation throughout. There was a dilapidated building that directly adjacent to the site. There was a good deal of graffiti. There was a large amount of garbage and other materials left on the site. The walls to the brook in between our properties had fallen in, and there was a good amount of garbage in the brook. Mockley quickly changed all of that upon purchasing the property in 2015. Mockley has removed the trash and debris, torn down dilapidated structures, restored and painted the main part of the building, made major landscaping improvements, including contouring the land, adding attractive perimeter barriers, planting trees and shrubs, and cleaned out the brook and restored the collapsed walls. By his presence, Mockley has helped reduce crime in the area and contributed to local charities and businesses. Mockley has helped improve the neighborhood in many ways, and I believe all the neighbors have benefited from that. Throughout this project, Mockley has communicated its plans and sought my input when they know their work will impact my site. When their work impacts me, they have taken reasonable precautions to minimize some difficult construction issues, and issues during construction are vastly overweighed by the aesthetic improvements and security at the site. As to the day-to-day operations at the site, I have not observed any issues with generators, cooling towers, or other equipment at the site. I routinely see their security personnel patrolling, especially in off hours. In summary, Mockley has dramatically improved the site, contributed to the local economy, and helped improve property values throughout aesthetic and secure improvements. I cannot imagine an operation in a building of that size that would not lead to more noise, traffic, or other environmental issues than Mockley. It is an ideal use for the site, for Lowell and the neighborhood. For all the reasons above, I believe Mockley business operation should receive continued support of all the impacted parties, and that the account request of the planning board shall be approved. And this is signed by Joe Bayless. So we'll have those in the file. I believe those are the 3 communications. So at this time, I'll turn the meeting over to anybody who'd like to speak in favor of this project. Anybody in favor? In favor? In favor? Hearing none. Anybody like to speak in opposition? Anybody like to speak in opposition? Just come to the microphone, give your name and address, please.
Hi, Randall Sneed, 63 Otis Street. So, based on some of the slides that they had tonight and everything, they showed that they haven't had any issues with power for their clients. However, since 2015, and they've moved in and they started running their equipment, had my family lived in this neighborhood for 50 years, that we haven't had significant power outage problems in our neighborhood. However, since they have started working there, we have had multiple and regular power outage problems. The only times you would have them would be during storms or if there was an accident taking out a pole. That would be the only time we would have power outages. Now we have more and more power outages. On a previous project that they did by placing the fence, as they stated, they put berms in along Bourne Street. However, now that has caused a water issue because of drainage that comes all the way down the hill that would normally go to the grade at lowest point, which is Markley. So based on that, now Bourne Street floods on a regular basis with every rainstorm, and then puddles remain there for days, if not weeks. Also, with the understanding that in previous planning board meetings, that part of the restrictions are with safety, and along Andrew Street, the fencing and the gate is part of the fire access into the property. And is that still something that is a restriction that they're not supposed to be doing any other projects until they have completed that part of the project? And with the modifications that they're currently requesting, is that going to encroach on the traffic flow so that if emergency vehicles need to reach their property, especially as large as this structure is, that ladder trucks would have to be getting in there? Can they be actually able to circumvent the entire structure with their vehicles? They have diesel generators that they're wanting to implement. Has there been any plans or looking at for something that would be more sustainable with zero emission? The state guidelines that are for 2050, that they want to have the state at zero emissions, and the city of Lowell is trying to get their goal by 2035. For that, that's some of the things I've noticed from the slides and what we've done. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, my name is Fred Lappin. I live at 101 Bourne Street. The forgotten part of Bourne Street, it goes from Otis down to Andrews. And even my representative thought it was a dead end. Now, my problem now, and they're going to do something about it, is the noise. I'd like to speak about the, well, let me just show you. This is what I have to listen to every morning. Now that's every morning. I don't know how bad you can hear it, but it goes on all day. And that's from my back porch. In my house, I've had the air conditioners running all summer, even when it's nice weather, because we can't open the windows. My wife has a hearing problem. She lost a hearing in one ear and has a hearing aid in the other ear. She had bacterial meningitis 4 or 5 years ago. For her to go out in my yard, she has to wear earmuffs like you'd wear at a shooting range. When we come home, sometimes I have to get out of the car, run in the house, and get her earmuffs so she can just walk to my back door. Suppose they're going to do something on the 20th, 22nd, whatever. Instead of doing the pile driving, they do augers. They haven't cared up until now. The cooling towers is another thing. Now, they say they're going to install 9 chillers. Now, what's going to cool them? There's going to be more cooling towers. On the slide that he had up there, they said they have 1 cooling tower. There's 2 of them. And a third one was added in the last few weeks. You don't know about that. Now, as far as the cooling towers, that was my trade. I'm concerned with the bacteria in them. You know, when the fans run, there's a possibility that they can push any bacteria up to 3 kilometers. And I'm within 100 yards of those cooling towers. See, I'm on the back side of their building. I'm the only house that fronts them. And, I don't think, as far as following through, I'm afraid they're not going to follow through with a lot of this stuff. Because when they put up that fence, they landscaped it and said they were going to plant trees all around it. I'll never see the fence. The trees are planted on the wrong side of the fence, over by where the water tower is. As far as noise and construction, when they did the water tower, they said that was it. They wouldn't be doing any more construction. I had to listen to them crush the rocks and do the demo in the chiller building that was there. All the rock crushing went on from whatever. I've lived there 25 years, and in the last 4 years, it's been nothing but noise. When they did the building, they painted it, they sandblasted it. That was fun all day long. My wife couldn't leave the house then. Now, as far as the cooling towers, I don't understand this. 9 new chillers. How many tons are they? 600 tons? How many cooling towers are they going to need? Now, when they say they only have 1 cooling tower, and they say they're going to add 1, they've already got 3, and they just added 1, and nobody knows about it, I bet. I'm very concerned. I've been out in my yard and not have a cloud in the sky, and all of a sudden I feel water droplets on my head. I didn't have my hat on, and my arms. And I look over, and the fans are running. So I know that's coming from the cooling towers. Now, if I got to, I want to know how often they test it. It's a law that you have to test it quarterly for Legionnaire's disease. And what do they use for chemicals? Are those harmful to me? To me, I don't think none of that has even come up, and it should have been priority, as far as safety. So, I got other stuff written here, but that's my main thing, Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, my name is Nancy Forts. I live at 36 Iowa Street. There are 4 things that the Markley Group have done and not done to be good neighbors in the neighborhood. One, the site plan approvals should minimize the threat of air pollution. Generators on the south side of the property abutting Iowa Street are still giving off fumes, which enter my residence and my yard. This is especially bad when they do all-day burns, and the maintenance burns depending on wind direction. In documents submitted to the City of Lowell and the Mass Department of Environmental Protection, they indicate they only do long burns once a year. This is not true. In 2024, they have done all 4 diesel generators at least twice for all-day burns. In July of 2024, they tested the generators by repeatedly turning them off and on, which resulted in a large discharge of thick black diesel fumes. It seems they picked the windiest days to run them, which results in the fumes blowing in whatever direction the wind blows. In the case of the July testing burns, they filled up my bedroom with diesel fumes while I was napping, and I woke up to a room full of fumes. You should be able to have your windows open in the summer without having exhaust fumes encroaching on your living space. On July 18th, 2024, Devon Cutchins, Markley's vice president and chief legal counsel, came to my house to drop off an air quality report. At that time, alternatives were discussed, and Mr. Cutchins shot them all down. Their proposed solution was that I could leave my residence during any planned burns, and they would notify me of any future burns. This is not a fix to the problem. It's not my fault that they are polluting the neighborhood. This is an environmental justice community, and Lowell is seeking to be carbon neutral by 2030. These generators do not fit any of these plans. Action requested of the planning board is to investigate alternatives such as fuel cell technology and was mentioned diesel particle filters. Alternatively, if the city of Lowell doesn't wish to mandate Markley to change the type of generators on the site, then a condition should be added to this approval for them to install scrubbers on all generations in the generators on the site, especially the south side, ones closest to residents. And my house is very close, less than 100 feet from those generators. This, Mr. Cutchin said that it takes 5 minutes for these scrubbers to kick in. I'd rather have 5 minutes than all day of fumes. This will assist with mitigating the fumes for all-day burns, which will only increase as they need to back up electricity for new clients, which is why we are here tonight. The site plan should maximize traffic safety to the site and provide adequate access to each structure for fire equipment. The parking situation on Prince Ave was pinched when Markley put up a fence which took the property that was in the city's possession for over 2 decades. The city sold part of Prince Ave to Markley. There were additional parking spaces in that area and now are fenced off. The city allowed this to occur, and now the emergency entrance to Markley from Prince Ave is routinely blocked by cars, and it further causes problems when in these apartments they have up to 3 cars apiece. And when those houses were built, people didn't have cars because they couldn't afford them. They worked for the bleachery. Emergency response vehicles, including fire trucks, ambulances, and police, have a hard time accessing this roadway. Routinely, we have trouble getting the trash and the recycle trucks up there because of the parking situation caused by Markley taking of this property. Cars are now encroaching on Iowa Street Hill, which makes it even skinnier to get up Iowa Street, causing the more blockage. This is also causing an issue with snow clearing and removal, as there is no place to put it and the cars are obstructing the roadway. The snow from Prince Ave was supposed to be pushed into their property through the gate at the end of the street, as it was agreed when the street was sold. But this doesn't happen. And the sale of what was called Prince Street, locally it was called the New Street, now they call it Markley Way, caused further parking issues as the overflow would park there. People used to go from Prince Ave and park down there, which didn't cause the obstructions we have now. Action that I'm requesting the planning board is to fix the parking on Prince Ave. One of the houses should be torn down. It is important to point out that Devon Cutchins and Jeff Markley own the property at 3 Prince Ave, which could be flattened and turned into a parking lot. This was a parking lot before when Prince had it, and there were cars parked in there, which alleviated the problem. Site plan approvals should minimize the threat of pollution. The noise coming from the south side equipment well is routinely in excess of 50 decibels. That is what is zoned for a residential single-family home. The 2 pieces of equipment that are causing the most noise from the equipment well were not approved by the planning board for placement there and were suddenly installed during COVID. As the temperatures have risen in the area, these air conditioning units are on longer and even louder. When they turn on, they're the loudest. Over the summer, Markley brought in 2 more flatbed chiller units and put them along the retaining wall behind my house. Action from the planning board is to have them installed or lessen the noise from these units to make less than what the residential decimal level of 50 decibels are. Having noise pollution above 50 decibels constantly has been linked to health problems. And number 4, site plan approvals should provide adequate access to structure for fire equipment. This planning board made it very clear to Markley at prior meetings and for prior conditions of approval that the fence and gate along Andrews Street was to be done before any further construction happened. Not in progress, but done. Throughout the summer of 2024, construction on all sides of the property has taken place despite your approval being for the parking lot only, and with the condition that the fence and the gate would be put in place before that happened. This was not and is still not the case. Action that I would like this planning board to see is to stop all construction immediately on the site until the gate is installed, and not have cars parked on the other side of that gate so the fire trucks can't get through. Only recently, within the past 2 or 3 weeks, have they begun to address the condition, which is still not met because the gate isn't there. It isn't replaced like it should have been. In conclusion, the Markley Group has been allowed to and continues to modify the site plan from the get-go without planning board approval, and when you place conditions on them, they choose to ignore them and proceed with other construction they're not permitted for or approved for, and ask for forgiveness later, or just sneak into the plans without the planning board having anything, seeing it at all. The Markley Group presents themselves as being neighborhood friendly, when in actuality, they've been a public nuisance to me and area residents since their arrival. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak?
Hi, my name is Holly Flynn. I live at 34 New Hall Street, which is on the north side of Markley. I lived in the neighborhood since 2010. I am here to voice my concerns, ask questions, and support those who will speak tonight as well. My concerns are the diesel generators emitting toxic cancer-causing fumes into homes in the air, the cooling towers, and what chemicals they are using and how often it is cleaned, and if there's any runoff that can contaminate the soil or the brook that runs in my backyard. And what other migraine, vertigo-inducing noise pollution we are going to have to endure. I also had a question about zoning. I heard someone say light industrial. If someone can define that, because what is over there right now does not seem like light industrial to me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello?
Hi, guys.
Yes.
I think you pretty much know me from every other time that we've been here since the 2015 original approval.
Could you state your name, though, please?
Yes, sure. My name is Jake Forts. I live at 36 Iowa Street. I'm a South Side abutter. So I'm just waiting for the presentation to come up and be shared with folks on the big screen. While that is occurring, I just want to point out something. One of the people who had the approval letter or something in favor of the Markley Group failed to disclose a conflict of interest, and that would be Selena Corkland. When she was approached by the Markley Group to change the fence, they also landscaped her yard. So I would like that known, that she does have a conflict of interest in writing to the board this evening. Now, for my presentation, I want to extend upon what my mom Nancy had said about the reclamation of property that was in public purview and the emergency access routes to their facility. This has been an ongoing issue with them. So next slide, please. So before they came to town, it's a little hard to see on the screen because it is shaded there by a tree. You can see a car parked there, correct? Please notice that car. Also look at where the red arrow is pointing for on the ground, which is basically where you see a different colored pavement. Now the fence that runs along there, next slide please, was changed. Look at the pavement line. Do you see what happened? Where did the car go? Where did those parking spaces go? Something called adverse possession. That land was fenced off in the mid-'80s by Pellegrino, Prince Macaroni. That was in public purview for over 20 years, and then suddenly it disappeared. This has been causing problems ever since. And the Markley Group owns multiple properties on Prince Ave, and they are not enforcing having any sort of parking conditions, so it continues to get worse. Next slide, please. So in 2012, you also see a sidewalk that was there that had been installed for Prince Macaroni, that had been there for a very long time. Next slide, please. All of a sudden, that sidewalk is now gone. What the condition was that she had asked about for the making or flattening one of the properties that Markley owns on Prince Ave is actually to the left of where you see the arrow, that landscape on the left. That property is owned by Devon Cutchins and Jeff Markley directly through a shell corporation called the Maxwell Group, I believe it is. So they could definitely work to fix this problem if they tore down one of the properties that they do own on Prince Ave. Next slide, please. So this is current situation. There is no parking zone all the way down the right-hand side of that. Unless you can tell me that cops are going to constantly stand there and ticket people, you can see that there's only the size of a car barely that can fit through there. The emergency entrance to their property, the backup emergency entrance, is on Prince Ave at the end of that roadway. How is a fire truck going to fit through there? It's wider than a regular car. Next slide, please. Now, that's Prince Ave. Let's talk about Andrew Street, which has been a hot topic tonight. As you can see here, before they came to town, notice the gap in the fence, right? See the gate? See the gap between it? Next slide, please. All of a sudden in 2020, Markley's owned the property now for 5 years. That gap got bigger, right? So when you continue on to the next slide, please, we look at the present day. That's supposed to be their emergency entrance. The closest fire station is around the corner on Lawrence Street. All summer long, they have moved because of the parking lot construction that they are doing. They have moved and parked and obstructed this entryway, which is the closest to a firehouse, if they needed to get to the site. There's 2 different dates you see there. This happened all summer long, and actually still happened today. I have a picture because I went by this afternoon. There was still a truck blocking that. So those are the 2 as you see there. Now there is a clip regarding the security that was told to us when they first came to town. So if you could please switch over to clip number 1 that is in that folder. So it's actually separately in the folder. No problems. So just to set the if you were, the mood for this video. In 2015, you were here on the board, Mr. Lanahan, so wasn't Mr. Frechette, and somebody who was also, I'm not sure if he's still a member of the board or not, but there were a few people who were around back then. So I just want that you to, just have a refresher on what was told to the community at that time. So we do have audio in there somewhere. All right, so for people who couldn't hear that, I know that there's a little bit of an echo, so I'll give them a second to fix that for the people that are at home. So basically what that clip said, if you were having a hard time hearing it, was that Markley Group's #1 priority was security, security, security. And so That was the part of it, and then the last part of the clip said that Mr. Markley was in it to make things right for everybody. So that was a very good clip from 2015, basically saying, like, this is what we were told. Now, when we look back over to the PowerPoint presentation and go to the next slide, talking about security failures. So this is their fence along Bourne Street. By the way, the bottom arrow pointing, that is the stuff that's left over after that pool of water has dried up that the other folks have mentioned so far. But where the other two arrows are pointing is that somebody, I don't know who it was because it happened on Bourne Street, pushed their fence in. I believe it was when they were pushing snow out of their driveway over the winter. This was left there, as you see the date on it, August 24th, 2024. Maggie. So if this happened in the winter, then if it did happen in the winter, that was left there all the way through until the week after that. Once they saw me pointing to it, or maybe perhaps they already had the fence on order, I was showing people around the site to explain different things to them, to show, hey, like, look at this site. They're saying it's ultra secure, but yet, you see where the rocks are underneath? Anybody could crawl underneath there. All you had to do was move the rocks, right? So if you go to the next slide, please. Hello? Do those look like security guards to you? Security, security, security. Where art thou, security? I'd love to know. So remember that hole in the fence that I showed you in an earlier PowerPoint presentation? The hole in the fence was where these kids got through. Where are they? They're on the access road directly behind my house. And as you can see where the red arrow is pointing, that's to the diesel generators. Where are the fuel tanks? They're underneath them. Are those inside their building? Because that's what you have to do, all the hoops you have to get through to actually be secure, is to go inside their building. Outside their building, that Andrew Street gate continues to be a problem. So as you can see here, this particular photo is from the summer, right? So if we go to the next photo, oh, you missed one. There should be another one in there. Oh, well, it got cut, but there is another one. And that was basically where it was in the winter months that there were two more kids on that same access road. And as you can see from this particular slide, this is about the risk to the neighborhood. What is going on right now in the Middle East? In 2021, there was a bomb threat that was levied in October against their company. All sorts of people, from state police to local fire trucks, were staged in their parking lot. Markley didn't say anything to anybody around their property that, hey, there might be a problem here and you should probably evacuate the area, especially not the people on the south side, which abutted those diesel generators. So, as you can see here, it's not just state governments and financial institutions and all that, it's what they're bringing. When they came in 2015, the Markley Group's attorney at that time told us it was Netflix. That's what we were getting. Who would want to blow up Netflix? Everybody watches movies. I think even people overseas watch movies, right? Well, as you can see here, this is from the World Wide Web. If you notice, the font is exactly the same. So this came off the same website. Out of courtesy to their client, I am not going to give that client's name, but just know that that client has data in Lowell as well as having an office in Israel. Given what's going on right now, I would think security would need to be of utmost importance. So we need to get that gate installed on Andrew Street now. No more whatever. It needs to come in now. Next slide, please. Now, the site alteration shall be designed so as to minimize pollution. Now we're going to pivot to the pollution part of this. So first we're going to start with noise. Next slide, please. So in 2020, what my mom was referring to, if you look on the left-hand side of the screen, you see no blocks. You see where that little backhoe is? Do you see any blocks there? Nope, they weren't there. Then all of a sudden, during COVID, they installed the larger blocks that you can see now on the left-hand side from their picture. They actually gave me a nice, good, solid picture of them by doing their presentation. Thank you for that, I appreciate it. But those were never put before the planning board. You never approved them. They never mentioned anything. They just went in. Now, the problem with it is that with climate change, the climate continues to warm, which means those have to work extra hard to cool their facility because their facility must be cooled. Those give off enough noise at the property line of 55 decibels. Now, I don't know what you guys are going to do about that, but it's never been included in any of the plans until the most recent ones they're submitting to you now to try and slip them in. However, we never talked about this before. They were never approved to be there. Only coolant fans that are around the corner from it, not those. And those emit the most noise of anything that is in the equipment well behind my house. Now, next slide, please. Oh, sorry. So, here we are with the south side again. This is the equipment well. This is from the summer. Now, remind, like how I had said about everybody parking everywhere, you can see one of the people are parked on the access road, which is a fire access road. So there's that for safety again. But this particular structure that it's pointing to, as well as the fans that are beneath it, I'm not sure if there's another red arrow in there somewhere, but the fans that you see along the fence, like where the 2 trees are, those were added in. Those are mobile, and they were suddenly brought in, and they were connected. Dave Fuller knew nothing about them, and I brought this up at the community meeting that the Markley group had. They said nothing. We don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, there's a hole in the building. You're doing something. What are you doing? Always, nothing's wrong. Nothing's going on. So here we are. Now we've got these in the equipment well. They haven't been turned on yet, but I'm assuming that this is a backup for some sort of, like their client that's going in. The pipes coming out of the building are permanent. However, those are mobile. Something else is going there, because why would they have permanent pipes and then suddenly leading to something temporary? I did not see anything on the plans tonight about anything permanent going in that well, but yet they have permanent pipes going into the building. If it were temporary, everything would be temporary. So I would like an explanation from the Markley group regarding what these are, why they're in the south side, and what's going on. Because they don't ever tell you, they just do, and you ask questions later. Now, the next slide, please. Oh, there was the other arrows. Look at that. Sorry. So now let's talk about the air pollution. So tonight, the Markley group presented that they are going to do all sorts of things to fix the north side generators. However, the south side generators are still a problem, and I didn't hear one peep from them tonight about fixing them. Now, if you could go to the next slide, please. So there is a second clip, and now I'm kind of a little worried that the audio might not be as good. However, this is actually from a member of the planning board, so as he's pulling it up, this is actually from 2015 from the planning board. There was a discussion at that time about the amount of fumes that they were going to put into the neighborhood. And that is exactly what this clip will show. I'm hoping that the audio comes out a little bit better on this one. But it was a discussion that was had when they first came to town. And a very important discussion, as it's now proven to be. Yep.
You're such a fool. You're talking about the future here.
No, Peter, is not. We don't have the video yet. We don't see a video yet.
So from that, oh, I have an echo chamber for a second. So the next slide, please. Just when you get there. So there was a lot to glean from that particular clip, and we're going to break it all down. One of the things mentioned in there was about retrofitting the scrubbers. This was back in 2015 when they first came to town. Now, just a reminder, I'm sure that for some people who might remember this, this was the original site plan. Every time I'm before you, I'd like to remind you that this is what the bill of goods were that was sold to the people of Lowell when they first came to town. It changed almost immediately. Actually, overnight it did. And so, if you look and hit the next there, a little red arrow will point to where the parking lot was supposed to be. There was only supposed to be parking there. There's parking there now because there are parking lots under construction. But never was there supposed to be generators there. And it has been my fight since then. 2016, it's now 8 years, and we're still not done with this problem. So next slide, please. So in 2018, I came before you, and at that time it was brought up, you might want to hit the next, that staff were made aware that the generators in the southern portion of the property, as depicted in the current site plans, were not shown in the original approved site plans dated of June 19, 2015. They weren't, they just suddenly appeared. Kind of like the same problem that we're having with the AC condensers that are making all sorts of noise in that equipment. Well, now, they just suddenly appeared. Next slide, please. So, what ended up happening? As the Markley Group already had mentioned, and as VHB had mentioned, they decided in 2020, when everybody went remote, that they were going to lift the smokestacks, right? We're going to try and fix this problem. Well, the original installation, if you hit the next arrow, I didn't realize that this was going to happen, and a couple of more. There's the original smokestack height, the orange, the two orange arrows. So then we added a conning tower. This was supposed to shoot the stuff up in the air. Now, if you can see from this angle, my house is the house that has the red arrow on it. I'm still uphill from there, right? So if you go to the next one, this was in 2020 that they did it. Keep hitting the next arrow because there's a bunch of arrows that should be, there you go. Oh, so there we are. So then we had a game of how far can we go with these stack heights to try and fix the problem, right? So in 2021, where you're seeing the yellow arrows, that was the addition that was done. Then in 2023, they added that little other thing on the top of it, and so far, it still hasn't fixed the problem. The fumes from there, on a windy day or not even a windy day, still enter the second floor of my residence because we are at that height. They can't put them any higher at that location because it wouldn't work. The generator noise would be too loud. So the fume situation on the south side is still not fixed, and they're asking you to put in more on the north side. Let's fix the problems on the south side first before we do more on the north. So next slide, please. So VHB issued a memorandum and put it in there. Let's talk about that memorandum for a second. Statistics are provided based on the year in this memorandum. That's the tons per year. Now, this is not accurate measure of emissions per burn conducted during the time period of the burn. It's spread out evenly over the year. So that means when they're not burning anything, they're also including it in the data that you're seeing there. Wow, those numbers are really, really low. Let's look at it when they actually are burning. That's the numbers you need to pay attention to. That's not what the Markley Group presented to you tonight. So if they were to actually present the numbers that are coming out of their smokestack when they're burning, and just those numbers only as to what they're emitting into the community, it would be a lot higher. Next slide, please. So data modeling versus reality. When they came to town, you saw how little that smokestack was, right? That was okay because the Markley Group decided to do something called data modeling. They are selling that same bill of goods to all of the people who live on the northern side of the property. Data modeling works wonders. Everything will be fine. Everything is going to be great. How many iterations of stack heights did we go through? 4 of them. Did it work? No. And if you can see from it, if you keep hitting, some more arrows should appear. Look at what happens when the wind is blowing, depending upon the direction of it. It sends it into the neighborhood. Who's to the south side of them? Residences. If it doesn't come my way, that nice big black plume of smoke that's in the left picture, that's going towards Bourne Street, Otis Street, over towards Mr. Laughlin, where he said about how his wife is having problems and how he has problems with breathing. This produces diesel fumes into the neighborhood. We're already a high-risk asthma neighborhood. We're environmental justice community. What's going on here? This needs to be fixed. In the right picture, you can actually see the plume of smoke coming up, which is supposed to be shooting up, but as opposed to it doing that, it's actually curving back around and heading back down into the community, which is the problem that we continue to have. Next slide, please. So, where are we at now? This isn't for you guys. This was actually something that they submitted to the Mass DEP. My point is that we're supposed to be becoming a sustainable city, right? By 2030. We're supposed to be carbon neutral. Does that look carbon neutral to you? No. The community impacted in this area consists of minority, lower income, and sometimes limited English-speaking residents. None of this was distributed in their language. They don't know that this is going in there. And the Markley Group tried to say that when they went to in-person meetings that they had met with the community to allay the fears with them. These community meetings are only on Facebook, and it's only attended by a sparse number of people. They only handed out this document, as well as the air quality report, to Back Central. There was only 10 people present at that meeting. Back Central is a densely populated neighborhood. They didn't inform anyone of what they were doing. Nobody received notice of that. And they're putting this in. Do you see the red circle there? That encompasses South Lowell, Back Central, and the Highlands neighborhoods. That's the impact study for the Mass DEP of what they're putting on that site. And that's only what they're going before the DEP for now, not what they're going for them in the future. So I'm envisioning that that circle is probably going to get slightly larger, if not a little bit larger. Next slide, please. Now, something that was mentioned in that clip, fuel cell technology. This has come a very long way. And this is actually what I'm asking the board to look into tonight for the 4 generators on the south side of the property. They're highly efficient. They're superior fuel efficiency to combustion power generation, and they can increase the return on investment. They also, which is the problem that we're having, avoid CO2 emissions into the community. Perfect solution, right? So, also, diesel generators give off nitrous oxide, sulfur oxide, and particulate matter emissions. This is going to significantly reduce them. Sometimes the vapor can even be water that's coming out of them. Now, these are easy to cite. Back, that was what, 9 years ago now from that particular clip that I had. That was 9 years ago. This technology has come a very long way. Even better, it is a part of a big industry that is in Connecticut. So this stuff can be even made in New England. So we are bolstering businesses in our own area, sort of. It is still in New England. And I reached out to them, and they can actually work with their site. They can do this. This is something that is actually doable in Lowell. And considering that they're surrounded by residential neighborhood, I'm thinking that this is something that should be implemented across the whole site, but particularly my area. So next slide, please. So it's time to find a solution. I've been before you how many times? Almost as many times as these guys have been here, right? It's only been one less because in 2015 I wasn't here, because at the time I didn't have a problem with what they were doing. So what I'm asking the board to do tonight is a complete site work stoppage until the Andrew Street gate is installed, unobstructed, because as you saw, they have vehicles parked in front of it, and manned, because as we've seen from the picture, there was supposed to be 2. Not sure what happened to the other one, but anyway, clearly that's a weak point in their security system. Now, from their own presentation, they told you that somebody got onto their site and was apprehended on their site. If you didn't quite catch that, I do have a copy of it. Now, second bullet point, move the generators or mandate alternatives, including batteries. Now, these have been brought up, batteries were brought up before to Mr. Cutchins, and he shot them down immediately, saying that this wasn't something that could happen. Well, fuel cell technology can. Let's do it. Replace the closest generators to the residences on the south side. Or retrofit them with scrubbing technology. You heard their original person, Louis Lepac, who was their original site person. They were supposed to be putting in scrubbers. They'd mentioned it already to the person who was in the planning board, saying that this is how we're going to mitigate the problem. They're not installed on there. Definitely not. I know what scrubbers do because of the industry that I work in. They're not installed. Now, removal of the AC condenser units. Those things were not approved, and they are loud. They are exceptionally loud. And they were in all night, all day. They turn on, they turn off. The turn on for them is really, really loud. So find a way to quiet them down or get rid of them because they were never approved to be there to begin with. Also, these portable chillers in the equipment well, we don't know what they're doing there, so please make sure that you have a sound study done with everything running in the equipment well altogether, and if it exceeds the light industrial, plus the residential at the property line, then those should not be there. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, thank you, sir.
Good evening. My name is Neil Dale. I'm a volunteer for 350 of Greater Lowell. We're a climate change organization in Lowell, and I've been working in this town for 7, 8 years now on two things, climate action and climate justice. The city of Lowell, I'd say it again, has taken a pledge to become carbon neutral by 2030, and I would really encourage the board to take that seriously and ask how they can encourage that in things that come before them, including this project. Climate justice means helping communities to stay healthy as we work towards a renewable energy future. Lowell has one of the highest youth asthma rates in Massachusetts, and it's more than 15%. That's an incredible number of kids in this town have asthma. Diesel exhaust is directly implicated in health problems, from asthma to Alzheimer's. We've sent you a long list of studies about diesel exhaust, if you don't know it already. And exhaust from these generators spreads to a much wider area than simply the abutters, which Jake pointed out. So it would be possibly a solution to move those 4 generators on the south side and put them where the other ones are. I think that would be a good idea. It still wouldn't get rid of the problem. One solution to Markley's pollution problem would be to replace all the diesel generators with fuel cells. This can be done. He mentioned a company that I've looked at myself, Fuel Cell Energy in Connecticut. They regularly ship megawatt scale fuel cells all over the country to do just exactly the kinds of things we're talking about here. They, I don't know if you know about fuel cell technology. Basically what it does is it takes a fossil fuel, and mostly it's natural gas, and they convert it directly through a catalytic process into energy, electrical energy. So they don't go through a diesel generator. And because of that, number one, they're greatly more efficient. They cost a whole lot less to run. Number two, they don't put out any emissions except water vapor and CO2. But they don't put out the dangerous stuff that we're talking about. So, and number three, they're very low noise. So frankly, a fuel cell would take care of their problems. And to forestall objections about cost, Fuel Cell Energy provides long-term lease options so that greatly reducing the costs. And from what we've already heard tonight, Markley's planning on spending $7 million to mitigate emissions and noise on the diesel generators. Well, you can take $7 million off the cost of one of these things right away. The net plant would initially be fired by natural gas, and from the point of view of 350, that's not a great thing. But they could use a variety of electronically generated fuels like e-methanol and things like that. And in the long run, the plant could become carbon neutral. The Markley Group has proudly taken a pledge to achieve 100% clean and renewable energy in their frequent public announcements. It's time for the Markley Group to put their money where their mouth is and join the low carbon future that we are creating here in Lowell. and at the same time to work openly and transparently in the community that they're in. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, good evening. Steve Malagodi. I live at 200 Market Street, just around the corner, and just over the hill from Spaghettiville, from this neighborhood. I'm also a volunteer with 350 Mass of Greater Lowell. This situation just recently came to the attention of our group, and we were immediately very interested because it's sort of the textbook definition of how climate injustice and facility siting goes wrong. And it's nobody's fault here, really. This situation is not at all unique to Lowell. This situation is going on, in fact, all across the country, where we have the need for ever-expanding data centers and telecommunication interconnection centers and artificial intelligence centers. These facilities and server farms, these facilities are growing exponentially. And so what's happening is, in order to satisfy the immediate need, facilities like this are getting stuffed into buildings and neighborhoods that is not scalable for what the future calls for. It's just, the demand is just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So the request that you're seeing tonight, that's not the end of it. There's going to be a constant need for expanding these facilities. And again, as I said, all across the country that I've read about, these facilities are being installed knowing full well from the very beginning that the utility company could not supply the adequate electricity needed. And so what you have to do is to put in alternate sources of electricity. And so diesel generators. Now, before I retired, I worked in a place that was kind of similar, not at this scale, but kind of similar. We had to run 24/7. There was no alternative. And so we had to have a backup generator when the power went out. And by the way, where this was, the power went out a lot more than it does here. But nevertheless, we had a similar situation. And that meant a big diesel generator, I think 2,500 kilowatts, the same as I think what they want to put in here. And that meant diesel fuel storage, constantly replenishing the diesel fuel. The transfer switch was really problematic. You never knew when it was going to work. It often didn't work. But there were some critical differences. Number one, nobody lived around where we were, where my facility was. Number two, that was 40 years ago. There has been no improvement in this technology, no notable improvement in this technology in 40 years. So what you're talking about is permitting really, really old technology to solve a problem that, okay, shouldn't have happened in the first place. But nevertheless, there are facts on the ground here. This is a strategic facility that has an intrinsic problem. It's choked for electricity. It's just a real problem. So there needs to be a modern technological solution to this, because this facility is going to grow and require more electricity and grow until it can no longer fit within the walls that constrain it, and they'll move somewhere else and abandon the site. That's what's going to happen. So what we need to do is find a technological fix for this. Installing new diesel generators in the middle of the city is not one of those solutions. It is absolutely unacceptable. It doesn't matter how high you build the smokestacks. If you're burning diesel fuel, the emissions go somewhere. So we need to find a technological solution to this, and diesel generators are not on the table. Absolutely unacceptable. Now, it was kind of interesting, Mr. Chairman, at the beginning you read a list of departments that you hadn't heard from on this project. And I think one of the departments that I didn't hear you mention was that of the sustainability director. So I wonder, did this even go to her office? Has this been considered at all by her office? It seems a slap in the face to the city's announced pledged goals to reach its carbon neutral goals by 2035. And it seems kind of like an insult to the sustainability division if this was not, in fact, run through their department. So I think what you need to do tonight is to go back to the drawing board. Just look, reset. And I would say this to the Markley representatives too. Let's just do a reset, right? In an environment of mutual respect and dignity where everybody, including the community, is taken with a level of respect that apparently has been missing in this long project. So I thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Can we take a break for a second? I'm just going to use the jar.
Sure. We're just going to take a 2-minute break for a second. Okay, we're back on record. Anybody want to speak next?
Hi, my name is Eileen Castle, and I live at 64 Otis Street, which is on the corner of Markley Corporation. I'm sorry. Okay. Now he's made me more nervous. So I'm here because I live right next to, almost on top of, the water tank. And the second one will be just about in my yard. There is no room to put any trees next to it because they took all the land that was there, so they had room to be able to put the fire trucks around. And I'm not even sure they can do that now. So that's why they want to come into my yard and put trees in my yard. It's very nice of them, but who's going to take care of them? Who's going to maintain those trees? I don't want them. I don't want to have to maintain trees. This has been an ongoing problem. They keep adding. Last time we were here, you said they couldn't do anything until after they did the fence. They've been working on it for months. They bring in more stuff. They add more stuff. They're working on the buildings. They're putting pipes in. They've got cranes in. It's constant, the things that they are putting in. Yes, we had 2 of the water towers. When I walk out of the door in the morning, I have mist, just like Mr. Laffey. I can feel it. It's on my car. When I told them about it, they told me, could you check the days that it happens so that we can take a look and see, what's going on? That's not my job. My job is not to maintain their products or their grounds. I need to know what is going on with them. I think I heard that they're planning on putting in a whole lot more water towers. I'd like to know, water tanks, I'd like to know what they're doing. Well, they never tell us anything until after it's done and they come here and ask for permission. So I'm trying to find out what that is. I'd like to know if there's been a comprehensive air quality study done. I think the city needs to be able to address our needs as residents. And I think the residents here have spoken and told you that we're not happy. This is not the way that Lowell should be doing business with anyone, and especially with the health of all of the people that are in the neighborhood. I think it's time for us to stand up and say, first, before you start doing all these things, come and find out, give us a chance to figure out what our health needs might be. We have people there that have asthma. We have people there that have other sicknesses. Again, all I'm asking is that the city of Lowell starts looking at their residents. We're the people that pay our taxes, we vote, and we need to have some say. This might be $1 million company, but that doesn't help me any if I get sick. Who's going to pay all those bills and who's going to take care of my family? I'm looking at things and saying that I looked at all of your reports, all of this stuff, I read it all thoroughly. There were no 9 chillers there. They're now probably there because they brought them in. 4 generators, they have, 16 of them down there? And they're telling you that they're only going to put 4 more in? Can you tell me what that building is for? That new building? I would like to know what the building is for, and I would like to know why we need a building that is going to, it sounds like it's going to filter the water. Is that what that is? I don't understand all of it, and I know I shouldn't, or I should. If I stay here long enough, I'm sure I'll be able to do something about this. But I think that this is time. I think everyone spoke eloquently, and I think the people are speaking, and I think that somebody on the planning board needs to start listening and understanding. I know that they probably aren't going to go away. That's not the answer. But I do know that Lowell needs to start saying, okay, some of the people need to be listened to, and we need to be heard, and we need to somebody to do something for us. And if you can't do it, I don't know who else can, because that's the job that Lowell is supposed to be doing, protecting its residents. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else want to speak?
Mr. Chairman, if there's nobody else, I think there's a few points we'd like to clarify if possible. Mark Swan, who's up on the screen, is the water quality engineer on this project, and I think he can speak to some of the concerns that were raised about emissions from the cooling towers. So if we could hear from him, and then I've got a few other things I'd like to point out to the board.
Yes, Mark Swan from Homeyer Consulting. Markley Group is our client. We oversee the water treatment.
Little louder, Mark.
Sorry. Yeah, we oversee the water treatment process at Markley Group in Lowell. Barclay is the chemical treatment provider. They provide corrosion inhibitors and biocide treatments for the property on the cooling towers and closed loop systems. Standard treatment adopted across the industry. In terms of the cooling towers and the chemistries involved there, again, standard corrosion inhibitors, phosphonates, azoles. The biocide program is the Cadillac in the industry, designed to mitigate the risk of waterborne pathogens and control that risk. There's regular testing performed on a quarterly basis to make sure that that water is safe. And there's quarterly audits performed by our company where we look at all of the chemistries, analyze all of the treated water systems using ICP technology, IC technology to get ppm levels of these chemistries. Barclay themselves are in monthly to perform service to make sure that all of that equipment is working properly. And on a weekly basis, they get automated controller reports that show us the relays for all those biocide programs and inhibitor feeds to, again, make sure that they're operating properly. So there's a lot of oversight from that standard to make sure that, again, that the program
Recording in progress.
That program is maintained, and oversight to make sure that the programs in place are working as designed, right, to mitigate the risks of bacterial growth. So the
Recording
standard that they meet, okay, the standard that they adhere to meets or exceeds the cooling tower regulations that are in place in New York City, New York State, which are the only legislature currently in place in regards to cooling tower operation. New Jersey is the second state in the country that has just passed it. We don't know the details yet, but that's forthcoming. But the chemical treatment program that Markley Group is employing at this facility meets or exceeds those standards. Any questions?
So if I could just summarize, so, sorry? What is he saying? So we test the water, right? There's been a complaint about emissions and from the water vapor and the cooling towers. That is tested quarterly. There is no state standard. in Massachusetts, but we test to the standards that exist elsewhere in the country, New York and New Jersey. And we meet those standards, we test quarterly. I think, if I could bring back for a little bit of reality check here, we're talking about 4 diesel generators that run less than 15 hours per year each, right? They're a backup system. We have explored other technologies. Battery technology is just not reliable enough for us. If we want to get into the technical reasons for that, there are people here who can speak about it. But we're talking about an add of 4 generators to meet customer demand for something that is proven to work well. It has worked well, and it's permitted, right? All of these things will need a DEP air emissions permit. What's existing now has those permits. What we're going to build in the future will also need existing DEP permits. So we meet the standards in Massachusetts. There's not a standard for this water quality, but DEP does regulate these towers, and we will meet the requirements of DEP on all this equipment. There's been some talk about stuff that we've done without permit. Absolutely not true. What we come to the planning board for are the things that require site plan approval. Other things can be done just with a building permit. We have an active building permit. We're in compliance. The building inspector, did comment. I would submit the reason none of the other agencies commented is because there are no issues of concern to the other agencies. The noise that you heard from the resident 101 Bourne Street, I believe that was Mr. Lappin. That noise was the construction noise. That was the pile driving noise. That's what the building inspector comment on. That's going to be ending this week. So if the board is inclined to impose a condition that we work with the building inspector to develop certain noise measurement, mitigation, construction noise isn't regulated by the ordinance, but we're happy to work with whatever the building inspector would require. That pile driving work, by the way, is nearly complete. If we continued on that way, it would be 6, 7, 8 more days of that work. If we do it the other way that the building inspector suggests, it would be less noisy, less intrusive, but take a little bit longer. So if that's what he wants us to do, we're willing to, put decibel meters around the property if that's what he wants, some sort of noise audit. All of this equipment has noise mitigation measures, and it complies. We comply with current standards. And what's new proposed will also comply with current standards. So there are people here who can speak to specific technical questions if the board has them, but I think the point is we're asking for an expansion, and we will continue to comply as we have from the beginning with the rules imposed by the board, by the building inspector, by DEP.
Okay, at this point in time, I'll turn it over to any of the board members who have any questions or comments. We start with you, Caleb, if you don't mind.
So, give me a second.
Take your time.
So maybe the first one I want to ask about the portable equipment. Just want you maybe to clarify what type of equipments are they that you are putting in temporarily or for not a long but not permanent basis that is not shown on the plan, if any. And also, if they're shown on a plan, can you point them out where they are, and also whether they are shown in let's say the most recent approval, so that we can verify, what the neighbors are saying, whether you have those in without us knowing, or we approve as part of the plan.
Aaron Fernandez, Director of Design at Markley Group. So, Peter, I don't know if you can bring our slides back up with. Oh, Peter, I don't know if you can bring the slides back up with our site plan showing the south side. So there is some temporary construction equipment that is that our neighbor Jake showed a slide for. Third slide's our site plan. That is on the south side. So it's south side of the site along the wall just in front of the 4 generators. There is, nope, south side of the plan. So, yep, right in there. So those have permanent pipes coming from the 2nd floor of the building. They're valved off at the ground level, and we brought in temporary equipment to test during construction. So that equipment's just associated with the construction. Once construction is complete, that equipment go away. The pipes are in fact permanent. There is no reliable way to tie into our systems other than what we did with the permanent pipes. So those will remain, but there's no temporary way to bring chilled water in and out of our building for testing purposes.
Okay, so like that includes like what type of equipment?
So those are they're chillers.
The chillers, okay.
Yep.
And they're only in for testing.
They're only in for testing. And then
So when do you think they will be taken off the site?
I don't, they won't be used very often. If it maybe in the end of the year, towards the end of the year, we'll pull them off site.
And also, how is their noise performance compared to the ones that you're proposing?
Their noise is louder than what we have for our permanent chillers along the back. So all of our permanent chillers with or chiller plants going along the back are quieter.
Quieter.
They also have permanent sound abatement around them. We're talking about sound fencing, all the things that Vin went through.
Okay, and how long have they been there? I mean, since they were.
The construction chillers showed up last week in August.
Okay, last week in August. So about a month.
About a month.
Long.
Yeah.
Okay, and they'll be until. And maybe a question for Attorney Martins is so what's the process with that? Like, is the building inspector basically sign off on that and as part of the construction?
So yeah, as part of construction, right? Because there was work authorized by the planning board previously that has begun. That's what's causing all the noise, the pile driving to set up the bases. So that work is ongoing pursuant to a current building permit.
Okay. Well, thank you for your clarification first. And one follow-up question on that. Have this been clearly explained to the neighbors, or they kind of caught off guard? Or well.
So the forum to explain this level of detail, I would submit, that doesn't really exist, right? I mean, so. Likely not.
Okay. So I mean that we recognize that this is part of the disconnect of, when there's a lack of information, then complaints come in. So
we have in general started to attend neighborhood group meetings and keep folks generally informed about what our plans are, but this level of detail would not usually arise at that type of meeting. But we can, be as detailed as folks want us to be in the future.
I understand your what you're saying, but I'm this just making sense of what I'm hearing right now.
Fair enough. Yep.
And our question about the gate. Now, I'm certainly the neighbor have say a lot about it. So I also remember you mentioned that the gate will be complete after the road is in. So is there a reason why the road, these signs have not been forthcoming, or is it because it's evolving? And also, if that's the case, if you're going according to your plan, how do you address some of the seeming security concerns that the neighbor raised? And also emergency access concerns.
So the road is moving as part of the main retaining wall move along the back entrance. So that's a big part of why we haven't done the gate yet. From a security standpoint, we do have on-site security cameras, et cetera. So we can maintain security to the site. The emergency access concerns, I think, have been through with the fire department, maintaining access both during construction and throughout after the construction. So they do have access along the whole road, running around the site, and they do.
Were there any communication with the fire department regarding the current situation?
I have not had any direct conversations with the fire department, but they have been on site with our chief engineer.
They have been on site.
Yeah.
I see.
So
yeah, because
we do regularly speak with the fire department.
I don't think we didn't get anything from the fire department.
No, and usually from the fire department, they will say we have no concerns, they just don't say no comment. So for all these department heads to not respond doesn't mean they're satisfied. Because usually we get a comment, we have no concerns.
I was going to say Lowell Fire was on
I
site
understand
very
that.
recently.
We reached out to them, gave them a set of plans, and asked for any input, and we have not heard back. Just because they've been on site doesn't mean they're okay with it.
I mean, completely understand that. We haven't gotten any comments back that would say anything other than.
Yeah, I'm not saying.
the plans.
Yeah, there is something lacking. I'm just saying this is what we have on at the desk right now.
Okay.
And I remember from the more recent hearing, from the last approval, is that like there also the south side with the gate, which I don't think is in yet, correct? Or the access, or I forgot exactly. I need to look at the plan.
Yeah, if you can get back to that site plan, Peter.
Yeah, I believe it's from the Prince Ave.
Yeah, go to the previous slide. This is the approved plan of record. It shows, we should have actually graded out. There was a condition of approval that the access off of Prince Ave was actually to be removed, and so we just didn't edit the rendering. That access off of Prince Ave, or is it Otis Street? I forget, there's like two streets abutting each other, is actually no longer in the plan. So if you go to the next sheet, Peter, you'll see that that's the condition that we're proposing, or that actually exists right now. That driveway, there was a concern at the last hearing that shouldn't be there, and we heeded the planning board's request and removed it. That was actually on the recorded set of plans that was submitted to the planning board last December. So that is the plan of record. What you see on the screen there, that little corner, there was just an error in the aerial there.
So the current emergency access from the main gate and also
There's two accesses to the site. There's one off of, I believe it's Moore Street, that you see coming down that long stretch that leads to the parking area, and then there's the entrance off of Andrews. Those are the only two accesses to the site.
Okay. Yeah, but there is construction vehicle blocking the other end right now.
I'm sorry, what was that?
But there is construction vehicle blocking the other end right now.
Occasionally there are. I saw it in the photo as well, so yeah. Something that we'll probably have to manage during construction to make
Okay.
sure that it doesn't get blocked.
Yeah, because that would be a concern for me.
Clearly.
Yeah, but at the same time, I understand things are evolving, but I still see having the gate at least have a temporary secure solution to be a high priority. So just leaving it as chain link where teenagers can sneak in doesn't seem to me as secure site. So I do have a big concern about that. So just thinking out loud right now. I think regarding technology, unfortunately.
Okay, so if we put a newer, more robust chain link gate during this construction phase, would that be a not permanent solution, but a workable solution until we're complete enough to put the final one in?
Well, I think what I'm looking for is, as long as there is a secure perimeter that is also allow the fire department to access the site during an emergency. Those are two things I look for, right? So however you do it, it could be a chain link fence, but you need to be secure, right? And also that part of the site shouldn't be looking neglected, right? That's what I would think is a reasonable expectation.
So the security is our concern. I mean, it's not dangerous per se, but we don't want people on the site either. I mean, there is a chain link. It's possible look, I grew up on Bourne Street, all right? I spent my life hopping fences and running through the brook to get to the ball field. So, if you put a fence in front of a kid, he's going to try to find a way to get over it. So I'm not saying we'll never have a kid there, but we could make an improvement.
Yeah, I understand. So I recognize we share the same concerns, and yes. So I understand from the main gate there is a security as well, correct? Like there is a security person. I mean, there is a gatehouse. So I wonder if that can be a guardhouse on the back that as well, or something like that, right? I mean, it's a big site, and I know you have staffing considerations too, but I'm just wondering why it seems like a back gate that, a back route that like people can sneak in or climb over even you have a gate. So I'm wondering if, you can beef up some visibility of like, safety and security over there.
I mean, at prior hearings, it's been sort of drummed into us that that's supposed to be for emergency access only.
Mm-hmm.
So there's been some reluctance on our part to treat it anything other than that.
Okay.
And I don't know that at completion a guard is going to add to the security, because I don't think there'll be the threat of someone sneaking through.
Okay. Well, I think with that, I think I would at least propose a condition to say that I wouldn't prescribe it, but that we improve the security and ensure emergency vehicle access on that entrance. And would that be amendable to you? In a general way to ensure security.
Yes.
And also emergency access on that. That is
Andrew Street.
Andrew Street.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And I think there's a lot of talk about diesel fumes and other things. And I mean, just recognize that there's standards in place. The challenge here is that it's really close to adjacent residents, and so fumes, water vapor get across property lines. And I mean, that in a way is inevitable. I know there's a lot of things that you're proposing, but I cannot overlook that if you're going to put more towers on the backside, it's going to, I guess, worsen the situation. So that is what I need to consider, and the water vapor may be no harm, but it's certainly not like not something for you take it for for a normal situation. So I'm just wondering where that anything can be done to.
I mean, it is a DEP permit requirement. We are below any thresholds for a MEPA filing, Mass Environmental Policy Act. So this is innocuous enough to not require that type of review. And again, I would just point out that these things are, it's less than 15 hours a year, right? It's 1 or 2 minutes a week, and that I mean, I don't know how much more we can mitigate beyond meeting DEP best practice technology. That's what the DEP requires. As best practice technology evolves, we'll have to evolve with it. But for now, that our plan is to fully comply with DEP.
A question about the generators in the north, right? So once you have at least 4 more, correct? Once they're complete, could the responsibility of the 4 generator in the south be shifted more toward the north? At least, I know you still have to test them, but like, would you be able to like keep them as even backup so that like
keep them for backup?
So you use the northern side of the generator first before you turn them on at last, right? Is that something that could be done, or?
The systems on the north and the south are completely disconnected, so it's
2 different
2 different
systems.
completely,
Okay, circuit.
completely different systems.
Okay.
So
Got it. Yeah, I mean, I just recognize that in your presentation, and I take your word that like the testing have been cut in 50% at least since seems like when you start operation and having them. So I recognize that, but the diesel fume does get into people's houses. So and in that limited time of the year, so that's a fact that that we have to deal with, and maybe a fact that the fact that currently people have to live with. So I understand you got the DEP permit, but people have to live with the fumes. So
I guess, so we did commit, we're going to put money into scrubbers, right, for the new installations.
The new ones?
Yes.
How about the old ones? Are there limitations that you cannot put it on them?
Possibly. Any additional control equipment might have to go inside the enclosure. So it takes some engineering to see if the equipment could fit inside the current enclosure.
Yeah, okay, I understand. And it costs money too. That's without saying. Okay. So thank you for your information. I think there's a lot to think about. I will pass it to other members in a moment. Thank you for the answers.
Thank you.
Danny, have any questions, comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to appreciate everybody that came out, including the proponent. I think somebody hit the nail on the head with we all have to try to work together to make Lowell a better place. And that's what I'm hearing from everybody. So I appreciate everybody coming out, and I appreciate the proponent and council for their presentations. I guess what I want to get in my head, first of all, I don't think this should be voted on tonight, just so everybody knows where I'm standing. And the reason I say that is because when I look through what we've received from the different departments, there are a lot of departments that didn't check in. I don't know what their responsibilities are, to be honest with you. I'm new to the board. I'm figuring things out. But it seems to me that some of this is for safety. Some of it is for the well-being of the city and its residents. So I think we do need to hear back from them. But be that as it may, I guess what I want to get in my head is where does this project stand? All right, so there were a bunch of numbers thrown out, and I'm going to kind of put you on the spot, Attorney Martin. There was a bunch of numbers that were mentioned as far as this is what we're going to invest in the city. This is the size of the project. I'd kind of like to get a sense of where is the project now what will it be, like for percentages or money amounts, or after this proposal, will it be 50% complete after this proposal? Or, do we still have 60% left that it needs to be built out? So I guess what I wanted to do is get a sense of, it sounds like there's a big investment that somebody is trying to make in the city. And what I wanted to get a sense of is where does it stand now? Where is it going forward?
Right. So as to where it stands now, right, we're acting on the approvals that were granted in December 2023, right? So the construction has begun. There are equipment orders in place. The cost is, rough numbers,
Yeah.
$225 million for this project.
For just this project?
This piece of it, including the approval, if we got approval tonight.
So
Okay.
that's all of the stuff before, up to this, if this ever gets approved?
Right.
Okay.
And so the timeline for completion of that I've been told, 10 months, right? So roughly 10 months for completion. Things slip sometimes, but, I think, you could say approximately a year that this piece of all this would be complete.
Okay. All right.
Now, as to where that is in the overall site, it's not to say we're trying to grow the business here.
I get it.
And there could be things that come in that alter that. That's where we're here tonight, right? Things came in to alter when we had the approval before. Now we think we need 4 more.
Yep.
So, but as we stand here tonight, that's rough numbers where we are.
Okay. And so going forward, what is anticipated that's as part of the growth? How much more is going to be added to this site? Because at the beginning, I thought I heard, listen, we're looking to invest, $370 zillion or whatever the amount was. It was a lot of money.
Right. So, it's hard to say because, we have additional capacity beyond this, but technology changes too, right? So technology's changed even since the start of this in 2015. So it's conceivable, 5 years out that, or 1 year out, there'd be a better process that didn't require this type of technology. We might be able to do more on the inside with what already exists, right? As the technology requires less space and for operating servers and the like. So, we do have opportunity for more growth, but it's sort of dependent on the marketplace. If we can't say we're going to add this capacity today, this in 3 months, this in 6 months. The world is not as neat as sometimes we would like it to be.
Okay. Not knowing anything about this project, because I haven't been here, I just got here this year as far as on the planning board. It's my understanding that this is a data site, all right? I hear that there are generators and they're for backup just in case they lose power. What are the chillers for? What are the water tanks for? I'm looking at this and I'm saying, what is this?
Okay.
Sorry.
Oh, that's fine. That's why I'm here tonight. Backup generators.
Yeah.
Exactly like you just said. Utility goes down, we go to backup generators. Chillers. So our servers created an intense amount of heat. So the chillers are creating chilled water to run through the facility and remove that heat and reject it to the atmosphere. So we have chillers with cooling towers on top. That's a close coupled system that removes the heat from the data center. The water towers, there's one on site right now. The second, so those are cooling towers. The cooling towers, there are 3 on site. You are correct. There were 2. We've added a 3rd one. The cooling towers are part of the chiller system to remove the heat from the building. The water towers are the large tanks, they're actually water reservoirs holding water. So we store about 24 hours of water on site to maintain water to our chillers and cooling towers in the event city water is interrupted. So similar as to having diesel fuel on site for 24 hours of backup power, should we lose utility power, we maintain water on our facility to account for that failure. So that one water tower that's there is there for the first 8 cooling towers that are set up. The second water tower is required for that expansion to maintain 24 hours of water storage on site.
Okay. So can you explain what the chillers, as far as the chillers, I don't know, I get that they chill the water and apparently cool the system, but what sort of noise and/or pollution do they generate? What do they generate?
The chiller itself is inside an enclosure.
Yep.
Underneath the tower. So the noise piece of the chiller,
Yep.
we call it a modular chiller plant. So it's a chiller in a box with a cooling tower on top.
Yep.
The cooling tower is the noise part.
Okay.
So
All right.
inside of that chiller plant is it's noisy within the box, but the box mitigates the sound of the chiller. And then the cooling tower on top is an open cell cooling tower. It has a fan associated with it. So that fan is where
You hear the fan.
where we generate the noise.
Okay.
So, and that fan is what we're putting sound abatement around.
What does it emit? I keep hearing about sprinkles or misting or whatever.
So to cool the chillers, we run water over a fan. So there's a closed circuit and then there's an open water flow. So you bring in water, you run it over the top of the cooling tower, and then you push out air to remove the heat and run a closed cell water back down to the chiller. So that emission is water vapor.
Just water.
Just water.
And is this what Attorney Martin had mentioned? It complies with some New York statute
Yes.
that we don't even have.
Yes, so that is what our water quality expert, Mark Swan, was speaking to.
Okay.
Very hard to hear him, I can appreciate that. But that is what he was speaking to, is our water quality mandate, what we do to maintain water quality across those cooling towers. So right now, it's we have daily reports that get sent to our engineers through
Yep.
our building automation system. We have weekly audits from Barclay, our chemical treatment team, and then Homeyer, who Mark works for, is our quarterly audits, and they audit biocides and look for Legionella, anything else that would come out of those towers.
So basically bacteria.
Bacteria, yes. So it's warm water, so it
has bacteria.
Tends to grow bacteria.
Okay.
Or be a good place for bacteria growth to occur.
Okay. Let's get to the generators. I keep hearing different things. I keep hearing that they're used minimally, and then I hear that no, they burn all the time. They test them all the time. Can you speak to that?
Yeah. So our testing protocols
Yep.
are 5 minutes per generator per week. That maintains the generator to make sure it's still running and it will start on a call.
Okay.
I think, and then we do a load bank test to test the systems of the generator. So a load bank is a big heater.
It's a what?
It's a big heater. So it's a resistive load to test the generator to make sure the generator, when it heats up, it will still run. So
Okay.
it's like a generator. A generator is a big engine.
Okay.
So all we're doing is trying to get heat through the engine to make sure that the radiator still works, the fan works, that all the oils work, everything gets heated up and cranked up, and that if we do need those systems in an emergency, that they will maintain operation.
Okay. So right now, once a week, you said?
Once a week for 5 minutes, yes.
For 5 minutes. And then what are the other times that they're run?
I'm on the design side, but it should be. I'm on the design.
You're
side.
on the hot seat.
Our operators would know this off the top of their head. So it's once a year for a load bank test. It was a year, actually. Ben, do you the load bank testing, the run testing? It's once a year for 8 hours. But did we cut that down? Yeah, so I think it's once a year for 4 hours now.
4 hours, each one runs for 4 hours?
Each one, yes.
Okay, and right now you have how many generators?
Right now we have seven, excuse me. There are 4 2.5 megawatt generators, 2 3 megawatts, and a small 1 megawatt life safety generator.
Okay, all right. And so some of the things that was described is you're reducing the burn time, you're reducing the testing and some load tests that you just talked about.
Yep.
All right, so you're trying to cut down on time. You also mentioned extending stacks. I'm not sure how that helps, to be honest with you. I think wind blows stuff everywhere.
Air dispersion.
It's dispersion, sure. Yep. But you indicated that it must comply with DEP.
Correct.
That is a requirement, and that you get checked by DEP?
Yes, we submit reports, and we also, so all of our generators go through a very vigorous process with DEP to get permitted in the first place. And then they do, actually, we're gonna let Vin take this one.
Yeah, I think you're doing fine.
All right, you'll have to repeat the question. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I guess one of the questions I have is as far as DEP. DEP has to check the air quality from these generators. Is that correct?
They can. They have the right to come
But they
in and
don't.
test. It's up to them.
It's their right.
It's their prerogative. Yes, we submit the permit.
Yep.
The permit is approved. The permit application is discussed, edited, changed depending on DEP's comments, concerns. And part of our requirements is to comply with the conditions of the permit, like any other permit issued by any other agency.
So each generator gets a permit? Or is it the site?
It's a collective permit.
Collective permit
Yes.
for the site?
Yep.
All right, so you had to file a new one for this new proposed
Yes, anytime
change?
there's a change with air pollution equipment or air pollution sources, yes, you need to file a new permit with DEP.
Okay, all right. You mentioned something called a decibel reduction enclosure. Can you explain that?
I'm not the noise guy, but I'll do my best.
All right.
The enclosures that surround the generator come in multiple different levels of noise attenuation. Same way you have a car, a small car with thin walls is going to have more internal sound than a car with thicker walls, say. Same thing with the generator enclosure. Generator enclosures come with, the enclosure itself will attenuate outside noise from the inside of the generator, the inside noise from the generator itself, okay? If you get thicker walls or attenuation inside, you can get more noise reduction from the generator itself. However, you still get noise from the exhaust because the exhaust is sticking out of the enclosure. So, same way you'd get exhaust out of a car,
Yeah.
you'd get noise from the muffler out of the car, you get exhaust noise from the stack, and you do get exhaust noise coming, or you get noise coming from the air intake for the generator. Generator requires fuel and air. So that enclosure cannot be airtight because it needs combustion air to operate. So
Okay.
typically on a generator, there's an end that has louvers, which allow the air to come in so that the combustion cycle can work inside the engine.
Okay.
So that's where the noise comes from, generally the air intake, the exhaust, and potentially some from the inside, the unit, the engine pistons, and is attenuated by the exhaust, by the enclosure.
Okay, but the idea about this decibel reduction enclosure is to limit the noise for these things?
For the engines, yeah.
For the generators?
And
Okay.
Markley's gone up in enclosure attenuation. They've paid more to get a better enclosure on some
Okay.
generators.
And that's what's proposed for this new part of the new generators, is that correct?
Yes, I believe there's 10 of them that will have the new 35 decibel reduction.
Okay. And you also mentioned, or somebody mentioned, a noise wall and fencing for this new area?
Yep.
Okay. Bear with me. I'm looking at my notes. I guess when I look at this, it seems to make sense that why couldn't what you're proposing on the new side, whether it was scrubbers, whether it was noise reduction, whether it was pollution reduction, whatever it was, I don't understand why that couldn't be done on the existing side as well. That's what I see. And it sounds like there wouldn't be any good reason for it to not be allowed. It doesn't seem like the equipment couldn't be fitted for whatever this noise canceling or pollution scrubbers or whatever it is. It would seem like these other prior equipment could be fitted for that.
I'm sure anything can be retrofitted to
Okay.
a certain amount of cost and
Yep.
labor effort.
Yeah, no, and one of the things I did take into account is that you guys are, as far as this new area, you guys are spending some dough to try to eliminate some of the problems. And some of these problems sounds like already exist. And so, moving forward, I think I would want to see the generators, whatever the pollution controls are or whatever. I'm also curious on the, frankly, sometimes you get information that you're given and you're schooled, and I know nothing about it. I thought it was interesting to hear something that isn't diesel. I laugh every time I see a diesel car. You go by it and you're coughing and you're like, what the hell? Who designed this? And I understand that diesel generators are very limited use. I get it. I totally get it. But I thought some of the speakers raised interesting points as far as there are some new technologies potentially present for other types of generators, and I'm curious about it. And I'm curious to hear what you folks have to say about some of these other types of generators.
Okay, well, I've been working with diesel generators for about 20 years now, permitting diesel generators. There are certain diesel generators that are vital to providing backup power to their systems. One of the first diesel generators that I permitted was the airfield lighting at Logan Airport. Okay, power goes down, lights go out. You want a diesel generator there. Natural gas, there are natural gas generators. They do not provide guaranteed uninterruptible fuel supply. In an earthquake, if you need that generator to kick on and that gas line cracks, the generator's out of service. We've had gas issues in this part of the country before as far as low pressures. That would be an issue for, say, an airfield lighting generator or critical data needs like Markley provides. Battery storage is limited. The battery can only be charged to so much and then it expires. So if you have a 2-day battery and you have a 3-day power outage, the battery is useless. The data systems go down. That's unacceptable to Markley's clients.
So what you're saying is the only real solution is these diesel generators?
At this time, it is the best solution.
It's the best solution.
It provides uninterruptible power.
Okay. All right.
You mentioned fuel cells. They mentioned fuel cells. Fuel cells require natural gas. On e-fuels. How do those get there? I'm not an expert. I'm not an expert on.
And ideally, folks, just if you would, if you have other comments, you can certainly. The chair will recognize people, but
And
let the conversation be us.
That technology may be coming. Okay, I've worked on data centers for 5 or 6 years now. Worked on a data center in Utah this past summer that had 48 generators on their site. 48 over 5 buildings. And it's their best. It's what is state of the art right now for backup power at data centers.
Okay. I don't have anything further at the moment, Mr. Chair, but as I mentioned when I first started speaking, I think we do need to hear from the other departments. I'm really curious about the fire department, which seems odd to me because they generally respond. But I just want you to know where I stand. I certainly would want, to me, the pollution and the noise should be reduced on, I can't tell if it's north, south, east, or west, but the already existing portion that's already been constructed seems to me that that should be done to assist the citizens of Lowell and the surrounding areas. I mean, if you're looking at South Lowell, you're looking at the Highlands, you're looking at a 1 mile radius from what was described. So that's what I'm thinking, Mr. Chair.
If I could just add one more thing about the standards that we comply with.
Sure.
EPA standards for pollution generally run from 1 hour to annual. That's their exposure time frames. So it's theoretical that a person can get a whiff of diesel fumes. It might last a half an hour. It might last an hour. But that's averaged over 5 years, too. So it's not an instantaneous. It's not like a chemical like cyanide, where a small dose is going to be detrimental to you. The EPA's standards are cumulative standards, where it's the impacts over a year. That's how their exposure standards are calculated. One person mentioned tons per year, and that's a calculation that we make to determine the level of permitting that's required. Yes, this facility puts out a small amount of tons per year based on the small number of hours that the facility runs all year. Okay? Yes, when the generators are running, they're running at either reduced loads or at a higher load for the load testing. But still, on an annual basis, it's a very, very small number, 13 hours of non-emergency use.
I appreciate your responses, all of you. I do appreciate it. I do still think that if we're doing it in the other section, the new section, we should extend that to the old section as well.
Thank you. Caleb, do you have any further issues or questions?
Yeah, well, a few things to follow up to. So Attorney Martin, do you have a response to what the building inspector is asking in his letter regarding noise audit?
So if we would welcome the opportunity to work with him and see if there's some sort of program that he wants us to implement, decibel testing along the site perimeter. If he's going to require something like that, we're amenable to working with him to do that. So if that were going to be a condition, yes, we'd be open to something like that.
Thank you. So I think one thing to add to member Tenza, sorry, comment. I would like to ask Peter and stuff. You maybe when you follow up with the department, you could include the draft minutes. I know it's asking more for you to do, but then so that they have a context of what we are discussing, so that they can respond to those accordingly. I think that will be a lot more helpful.
Yeah, that's something we can definitely do. I wouldn't normally jump in like this, but I do want to ask Attorney Martin or somebody from the team, does the city ever get a copy of that application or that permit approval for the air quality? Because, we don't really have the capacity to address that without getting some kind of input from DEP. But as far as I know, we don't see that.
I mean, no. I mean, it's the typical process would be to file with DEP. So it's. Well, I think there's approve with, just like you're doing tonight, right? Approve with conditions, and all right, we'll approve the permit, but you got to meet these standards, and you have to, ensure compliance. That's why we have people that work for us that ongoingly monitor these.
No, I just mean if DEP. Yeah, that's kind of what I mean. If it needs to come with building permits or something, because I know like us as a project review team, if we're trying to address air quality, there's not anyone like specialized for that in the city. So it would be good to know who to talk to at DEP and see some of the input that they have.
I believe when the draft permit's issued by DEP, it's sent to the local officials.
Thanks.
Thank you. I think lastly, but not least, maybe to staff first. I do want to hear, like, there's one thing that, continual theme is that the parking on Prince Ave. And I passed by that. We know how it looked like. We understand there's parking demands there. And so I want to hear from the transportation or traffic engineer about, like, what can be done. And maybe to the applicant, to Attorney Martin, is that, like, whether, I know now that the site plan does not utilize the end of Prince Ave, there's no more gate there, well, whether, you can work, there's something that you can work with the city to see how to improve that side of the street. To at least address some of the obstruction issues and also parking demand over there. So I'm just speaking out loud. It's not a condition or anything, but I think I want to wait to hear from the transportation engineer and then see what can be done better over there. So
we'll look at it ourselves, but we'd welcome whatever comments they care to make.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have. Thank you, Chairman.
I agree with Attorney Tenza. I think we do need to get comments from the fire department, obviously. I think that's very important. Also, if we get one from the traffic engineer as well. Also, the engineering department is very useful. They always submit comments. So the fact that we have no comments from them is kind of surprising. If they're good with the project, they just say no concerns instead of no comments at all. So I think why we have so many departments that didn't reply is kind of troubling to me. I'm curious why that didn't happen. So, as you know, I've been up to that site at least twice. And when we've been there, some things that we put a condition to be completed were not completed, and some things were completed that they didn't ask for permission for, and they just went ahead and did it. There's no doubt about that. Planning staff has all the documentation. They've been there. Building commissioner's been there. He agrees. I spoke with him as well. So the fact that when some of the neighbors raise issues, that some things pop up overnight, that has happened. I can tell you that's happened on the 2 times that I visited the site. Sometimes, like, where'd this come from? Well, there's supposed to be 1, now there's 2, now we're going to put in 3, but we're not going to use the 3rd one, and all that stuff. So that was a little troublesome. And one of the questions that came up is whether when the board members want to do a site visit. So my first response was, well, I've been here twice, and some things are supposed to be there, some things weren't supposed to be there. So I've already been up there. So now that we have a list of what's completed and what's going into place, I'd be welcome to go up and do a site visit again. Even though we have a checklist that says what's been done, and even though I keep asking about the back gate, my requests go unheard, but that's another issue. I'd like to go up there and take a look at that, and I'd like to have the matter continued. If they want us to still go up there and take a complete look, show us exactly where they're going to put things to make sure they're going to stay where they're supposed to stay. So I have no problem, and I'm with the continuance as requested by Attorney Tenza. I think it's a good idea to get all this stuff on board. I
I mean, the neighbors have raised some good issues, and a lot of them we've heard for the last 9 years. I know we don't have Vice Chair Mr. Fischette here tonight. He's been with this project from day one, as well as myself. The other member was Mr. Lockhart, who just got off the board September 1st. We're the three who've been here the longest, who've been here since this project has started. So I'd have no problems if the applicant wants to have us back for a site visit, we could communicate that. And if not, I'll just go along with the continuance to the next, to either one of the next 2 meetings coming up, so we can get further communication from the other department heads that I feel is very important because of all the issues that have been raised. So,
Mr. Chairman, we'd welcome to have you or any other members that want to do a site visit. That's perfectly.
Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
If I might, I think it'd be helpful if we heard or saw what the neighbors see or hear. I think it would be helpful if, when we went there was load testing or whatever they want to call it, where we hear and experience what's going on in that area. And I'd say, start well, you can't do the new stuff, but you look at the old stuff and see what's going on. I think that would be extremely helpful from my standpoint, Mr. Chairman.
We can do that.
Okay. So what I would suggest is that if we make a motion to continue to our second meeting coming up, to be October 21st. That way, I don't want to come back and still have the department head said, oh, we haven't got it to you then, because that would be frustrating for everybody.
If it's at all possible, I guess we'd request the next meeting, right? I mean, we made the filing deadline and have been delayed already to this night.
The fact that we only have 3 members here, and hopefully we have Mr. Fischette and we have an alternate who could come, we don't know what their scheduled appointment would be for the site visit, number 1. And number 2, if we come back and we don't have the fire department, I'm not voting. I'll tell you right now. The fire department comments on here, and if you put on October 7th, I'm not voting for this project.
Fair enough, Mr.
I do not
Chairman.
vote unless I get fire department comments. I've been saying that since I've been here. I highly, highly recommend, and I back up the fire department on everything. It is the basic issue of a site plan review, health, safety, and welfare. If the fire department says we have issues, then you fix them.
So
90% of the time, they fix them.
If we get here on October 7th and you don't have that, at that point, we could continue again.
Yeah, and then everybody comes down, and we're going to go again. And if we come October 7th, I'm not going to put it on to the 21st. We're talking into November, and we only have 1 meeting in December. So we're really backing you up. So that's why I'm really encouraging to go for the 21st.
Mr. Chairman, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I know Attorney Martin is zealously representing his client, but it does make a lot of sense to do that.
Because I can't tell you what dates we could schedule the site visit for to begin with. I mean, you're talking less than a 2-week period. And I don't know what everybody's schedule is and what they're even talking about. I'm just trying to look at my calendar here quickly. So
It makes sense.
I won't be around for the first week.
yeah, so that's the only reason why I talking about the second one.
But DPD can coordinate that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys can coordinate the site visit or whatever.
Yeah, what they do is they check with all of us and we try to get.
And ideally, Attorney Martin can prevail with his clients to suggest October 21st may be the best date.
I think that way we should have plenty of time to get all the responses back and give us plenty of time to go to the site visit, and then any concerns that we raise at the site visit, we'll give the applicant a chance to comment on those at the next public hearing. So that's my concern. So, I mean, I think the 7th, we're cutting it short. And if we come the 7th, the chances are you're not getting back on the 21st. Because we have other scheduled public hearings, and so we can't put you on after we have 4 others, because we're not staying here till 1 o'clock in the morning anymore, like we've done in the past. We've already got criticized for that several times. So,
Peter, do we have room on the 21st?
Yeah, so you do have room on the 21st, and the filing deadline for that is on the 23rd, so it's pretty unlikely it'll end up full, so that would be, there's plenty of space for it.
And we need plenty of space.
Right. To get all the comments from the staff members and to try to get, like, what I was asking about DEP is I understand we're not the permitting agency, but like we're the first line of communication to the neighbors. So it's important that like we understand exactly what's going on. So checking in with all the staff would be very helpful.
I mean, the submission for this was submitted for a September 5th hearing. And we were assigned this date. So
That's because we had other projects ahead of you. This isn't the only project in the city going on. We do have other cases that come before us.
Well, I appreciate that, but, you know, there's the schedule, so we try to adhere to the schedule.
I hear it, yeah.
Could we, is there room on the 7th?
First of all, we have to vote whether they decide to put on the 7th. If we say no, then it's a no.
I just wonder if there's opportunity for us to work through the staff on the date.
So I guess it would depend on whether the tree hearing's requesting a continuance. Usually you guys do 3 items. And
We have
that would put you at 3.
We have a zoning request. We
Yep.
have.
There's 3 hearings already scheduled?
Yeah, including the tree hearing, but we know they're
We
asking
have one
to
being
continue.
continued, but we have a zoning request, we have this, another residential site. So,
I mean, it seems to make sense for 2 damn weeks. This is crazy. I'm going to vote for a continuance to October 21st or whatever that date is, because 2 weeks is, you know, no deal. If this is a significant project, this is a lot of dough that they're spending, and we want to get it right. Motion to continue to October 21st.
second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion is carried. So the matter will be continued to October 21st.
Thank you. We'll be in touch about scheduling the visit.
Thank you very much. Thank you very
Other
much.
board
Thank you for
members
coming
interested
down.
in that?
I'm sorry?
Other board members interested, or is that just you?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
The whole, okay.
Yeah, so what we're going to try to do is coordinate between the 3 of us here, and then we'll have Mr. Fischette and our alternate, so hopefully we'll have 5 board members who can come.
Okay. All right, we'll be in touch. Thank
You
you.
can communicate with them and
Yes.
reach out to us. Well, you can probably give us some proposed dates that work for you first,
Okay.
okay? And then when we get those proposed dates, we'll tell you which works for us. I mean, I don't know if you're talking, what are you usually thinking, like on a Saturday morning or something, or a night after work? Because now the days are getting short. I mean,
Yeah.
if it was there in the summer, we could go 6 o'clock at night, but it's pretty tough to do that now.
Is the board rather want to do it during the workday? You'd rather do it at night or Saturday? You tell us. I mean,
I would say a lot of work during the day, so sometimes we've done Saturday mornings.
all right. All right, we'll take a look. We want to be able to fire up a generator so you can hear it. And
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much.
All right.
And thank you, everybody, for coming down. Appreciate your input.
Yeah, thank you,
Good luck. Thank you.
everyone.
Okay, moving along on the agenda, do we have any further comments from planning board members? Do we have anything to update us on, Dan?
So was there something about the tree thing up on Centerville?
Yeah, they sent us a notice that they wanted to continue it, so they want to try to discuss, try to implement some of the concerns that we had.
Okay, so should we do something on that now, Peter? And the reason I suggest that is so we can give adequate notice to the neighborhood?
I don't know if a vote can be taken on it now if it wasn't on the agenda. I think we can notify the neighborhood that they're requesting to continue.
Yeah.
And we can't say the board's definitely going to vote yes. But we can, let
Yeah.
folks know that they're requesting to continue.
What we try to do is reach out there, stay on, like we usually do. If it's on the agenda that night, they request a continuance.
Yep.
The board's inclined to do so. Please reach out, notify the people.
Yep.
Because I can see where this almost could come down to us going out and looking at trees.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
I mean, especially when you're talking, well.
68 trees.
They're talking about replacing 68 trees because they're cutting down 65 and 3 have to be, yeah, they have to add more because
Yeah, they're
because of the girth.
The diameter is bigger, yeah.
Well, find all of them, right? That's the
Well-
Easter hunt.
Well, Ian, I mean,
And
realistically.
then the other thing is, we'd want to know when they're done marking them, because before we even go up there, because I'm sure a few of us
Yeah,
go up there.
true.
You're going to go up and say, oh, they haven't been marked yet.
So Peter, you're suggesting wait until October 7th and just deal with it then?
Yeah, yeah, and we can
Okay.
let the neighbors know that they plan to request to continue.
Okay, all right. That makes sense.
So I'm actually not, we won't be unable to make the 7th because I will be in Wisconsin for some training. So I'm gone that whole week.
Oh, that's even better then, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but I know we're in deliberation, so in Wisconsin. Oh,
seventh.
this week of the entire
okay.
week.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all right, yeah. That even makes a better reason for the. Yeah. No, I mean-
I'm sure Mr. Frechette can come.
No, I mean, yeah, I mean, the fact that, we've had this discussion tonight, yeah, I mean, you want to be input for the next meeting, obviously. So, moving along on the agenda, do we have any other further concerns? No? Okay, then,
Just a quick update, Community Preservation Committee is going to be meeting next Thursday. They have given us a pile of paperwork, a ton of different projects to consider, so I want to thank Allison for that appointment.
will this be your first meeting with them?
It'll be my second, but first real meeting, because at the end of the year, there's nothing.
Okay.
You've got 4 more memos coming from me tomorrow, so.
Okay, so, that concludes this. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Oh, second, sorry.
Oh, okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes, we adjourn. Good night. Thank you, everybody.